We are brought to you by Boss Bears Supplements. That's Boss Bears Supplements at bossbears.co. Hard work, consistency, and determination are difficult to sustain when your mind and body can't keep up. Fuel your body with what it needs to perform like a boss. Whether you're closing deals, pitching a new business idea, or training in the gym, Boss Bears take your hustle to the next level. Our ingredients are the highest quality with potency and serving sizes that are the gold standard in the industry. Check out all of Boss Bears products at bossbears.co. They have apple cider vinegar gummies. They have ashwagandha. They have all kinds of supplements in delicious gummy form. They also have them in pill form if you don't want the gummies. I prefer the gummies. They are delicious, and I've tried the apple cider vinegar. They are very good. Use code Nicky at checkout to save 10%. That's bossbears.co, code Nicky. We are brought to you by Clout Power Supplements. That's KLOUTPWR.com. So here I have the protein, the Cravings protein from Clout. This one is the salted caramel. This is some of the best protein that I've ever had in my life. It's actually delicious. I like the salted caramel and the cinnamon swirl are my two favorites. Also, their pre-workouts are amazing. So they have the Karma Nootropic pre-workout. It's a nootropic and focused pre-workout. It's a lower stimulant formula, zero itch formula. It has 4 trademark ingredients, and has fully dosed ingredients. So far, the Arctic Cherry is probably my favorite of the Karma pre-workout. Also, try the Nero Aminos from them. And also the High Stimulant Mamba is some of my favorite too. And I really like the Arctic Cherry of that one. So go to cloutpower.com and use code Nicky to save 15%. KLOUTPWR.com. Code Nicky to save 15%. Hey, welcome to the Nicky Free Podcast. I am here with Kim Douthit again.
Hello.
Returning.
Yes.
And she is one of the co-hosts, along with her co-host Gabi, of the Ghoulish Tendencies Podcast, where they talk about either paranormal things, ghost stories, murder mysteries, with a healthy dose of debunking, as you always say.
Yes, you got to debunk it. Or at least you have to have the open mind.
Yes, and I always appreciate that about it. I was just listening to your most recent one, which was I think a Gabi researched episode.
Oh yeah, because that just came out, I think.
Yeah, she was. That was where you guys were talking about the house from what is that movie? Insidious.
We did a while back. We did the Conjuring house.
Yep. This was the one that was like...
Oh, it's the actual Insidious 2. They used
that house?
Yeah,
or what?
Insidious 2. They filmed it.
Because I'm with you on Insidious is like better than the second one. But I like the whole film series. And it's funny because like that lady in it was from, There's Something About Mary.
Is that, there's the older one or the...
The older one that puts on, like, the headset
Lynn Shay, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, I actually think of her, like, because everyone's like, oh, that's the lady from There's Something About Mary, but I think of her more from the Insidious movies.
Well, and she's had kind of a career renaissance in horror as she's gotten older, because she did a movie called, it was Dead Ends, with, what's his butt from Twin Peaks, Ray Wise, and, what's funny is she's in, I think it's the original Halloween, as one of the teachers, like in this bit part.
Right, so that's like her first role, huh?
It's one of her
first?
It's one of her early roles.
Okay.
And so she's done horror off and on her whole career. But has really leaned into it more. I think she was in the Ouija movie,
right?
As one of the older sister to the little girl who was like haunting the house. She's
good, because I love the Insidious movie. It was so dope. Like, just like the idea of like you could get like stuck out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's the idea of astral projection, right? And it's weird, like the idea that you could astral project but not be able to get back. Which
that's terrifying.
That's terrifying because then like basically the dad has to like go back in and find him, right? But then, and it's the weird idea that there's all these entities, right? And so I was gonna tell you about this weird dream I had. So so you know Steve, who's the owner of this house, right? Yeah, which is funny because like last time you came, I heard that basically you didn't even know that, like, because I never told you. Like, that's how I got your name originally, was from Steve.
And I thought it was through somebody else.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until...
Well, I had a blast on the last one, so I was like, it worked out. I'm like, I don't care if she knows Steve. Like, we're friends now. Like, screw Steve. Me and you are friends, yeah. But anyway, so Steve has bought a different house, so he's moving out. And then we got some new owners will be moving in. I'll be moving to a different place. But so in the meantime, you know, Steve had like chickens in the backyard. And then he got rid of the chickens because somebody gave him a rooster. So we have this one rooster that lives in the backyard. And so like every morning I have to let it out of its coop. And then at night I have to close the door because it goes right in its coop because it doesn't want to get eaten at night. So it'll go right in. Yeah. So it's like one of my jobs now is to like make sure to close the door at night. And so it was weird because I was like in my room sleeping. Totally forgot to go close the door. And I had this weird dream. And I was like, in my dream, you know, like, oh my God, I got to go. It must have been because I was thinking I need to go like close. His name is Blue. I need to close Blue's coop. And in the dream, I'm like, oh my God, I got it. So I go outside, but I'm in my dream, but it feels like it's real, right? So I like go out into the backyard. And it's weird because it's like, there was like, you know, where his coop is in the backyard, but then there was like a tent. And for some reason, it was like the musician Neil Young was there.
Of course.
And he's like camping it. Because I was a big Neil Young fan growing up. So so like Neil Young is in the backyard camping. And he's got a fire. You know, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Neil Young camping in my backyard. I got to go talk to him. You know, and then all of a sudden I'm walking in the dark towards the tent. And it's like all of a sudden then Neil Young like disappears. And then all of a sudden I feel this like weird presence of like something bad. I can't really describe it, but it just feels like really scary and really almost like the Neil Young thing was like a lure to like, you know, get me to go and then
lull you in. Kinda,
and so then it's weird. So I start to get this like terrified feeling that overtakes me. And then all of a sudden I get kind of like that sleep paralysis thing. So I'm like trying to get out whatever's in the dream with me. I'm like, I need to get out. I need to wake up. And it was that thing of like this panic of like, wake up, wake up, wake up. And you can't wake up and you're trying and you're trying. And then like finally I like woke up and I was like, holy shit. And I was like all freaked out. And it's weird because like I don't, like I said, you know, I'm kind of like, I don't believe in stuff, but I do. I don't really know. But that was a pretty scary one. And then it was weird because the thing is then I like get up because I'm like, oh, I still have to actually go close Blue's.
Right.
You know, so then after this terrifying dream, I have to go out into the real dark. And it was weird because so I'm like, I'm just in my underwear. I go outside and I like go close his thing. And I was in the real world closing this thing in the middle of the night in the dark. And I'm like, this is so weird. Whatever life is, I'm like, this is actually less scary, the real life, than wherever I was in that dream or whatever was in there with me. I'm like, so it made me think, like, God, who knows what kind of things exist, you know, like.
Well, and it's.
Or it could have just been a scary dream.
Yeah, but it is. I mean, it is interesting to think about. Like, logically, you're like, okay, it was a bad dream because of I had anxiety about this, and it, you know. But you do, you know, it's the Mulder side that's wonder. Just like, could I have been projecting myself in this sleep world, and
there was something in there,
and there was something in there.
And it wasn't necessarily that I was in a dream that was scary. It was that this thing was there with me. Who knows? You know, like. So I don't know what I think about it, but I was like, I gotta tell Kim about that. Yeah.
Well, because I think that malevolent presence is really interesting because it's different than like.
Because I didn't see anything.
Yeah,
it just felt like something was there.
Which
Isn't
is
that
worse.
weird?
Because
it's
that's
worse. Yeah.
Because I feel like there's times I'm in the middle of a bad dream and like Jason Voorhees shows up and I'm like, wait, I know what's going on here. Okay.
Yeah.
But just that unsettling feeling of something being there is something still there. Yeah, and will it follow you out of the dream?
Right. And then I always do that thing where I'm like, you know, like my friend who does all that stuff, he's like, what you need to do is like, bring like the light into you, like say like, there, like, I don't remember how he said it, but I always just do that. I imagine like basically like light coming into my body and anything evil can't survive it or like, yeah, and it's like it all could just be imaginary, blah blah blah, but whatever it is, it kind of works when you do that, because like all of a sudden you feel like calm and safe again. But I'm just not one to like really, I've never been one to like see ghosts or think about it. I have gotten creeped out in a few areas before, like where they've just had an eerie feeling to me. But that was a weird one. I was like, whoa, that was creepy.
Well, and I very much believe like we have these instinctual responses for a reason. Like if we are feeling like something is wrong, you need to trust that feeling. Our bodies are wired to. They
really are. We're like animals. We have senses. That's why, like, when you're saying you're walking here and stuff, like, say you were in the middle of Seattle alone and you got some weird feeling about a person, you should trust it.
Oh yeah.
Like it could just be a harmless, nice person, or it could have, like I wouldn't trust it. Like
no, and it costs nothing to just be like, I don't have a good feeling. I'm going to cross the street, or I'm going to duck into this place.
Worst case, you hurt someone's feelings, but you're still safe.
But you're still safe, and I think particularly as a woman, we are so trained to try to not hurt people's feelings.
It's very much so.
And you look at how many serial killers have tapped into that.
They've used that. So I've seen that firsthand, like in the bar industry, where like, I'll have a female coworker and some guy who she's clearly not interested in any way. Even she'll be like a younger bartender, some older kind of guy creeping on her, asks for her number, and she gives it to him. And then after, like, Nick, what do I do? And it's like, well, why the fuck did you give him your number? Like, but it's that thing, like you said, it's that not wanting to, like, hurt people's, not knowing, and almost freezing up and not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, here's what you do. Give me your phone. We're going to clearly say, look, I didn't know what to do when you asked me, so I gave you my number, but I just want to let you know I'm not interested in you that way at all, and I don't want to hang out outside of work ever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you have to be clear like that. But I think you're right. And I think women, I mean, even some men do it too, people pleasers, but women for sure, like, they don't want to, like, hurt the status quo or upset, and it makes sense because, like, if you think through history, like, they probably had to do that a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, and
so, like, like, if there was barbarian dudes that, like, like, you got to keep them.
You got to keep them happy.
Yeah, it's like, don't, so.
Well, and it's how is it, like, Margaret Atwood or something, men are afraid women are going to laugh at them, and women are afraid men are going to kill them.
That's a little different.
But I mean, there is also that,
no, you're right. We get, like, embarrassed of stupid shit. Like,
but
like, what if they don't?
We don't know how somebody's going to react. And so there is also that, like, I mean, we're getting off ghosts by getting into this conversation.
Well, that's all right. I just want to hang out. This is going to be fun. Yeah.
The how quickly it can go from oh, hey man, I just want to talk to you, to like, you fucking bitch, so quickly.
Yeah.
Just
well, if it's not going like their way. Yeah.
And so I think there's that element too as a woman where you're just like, I don't know, like, they seem friendly, but it turns really, really fast, and it can go to a place where I am actually unsafe.
Yeah.
And going back to that idea of when we were all 1,000 years ago, where being a woman was also a very different thing. You have to. It's survival mode. It's the lizard brain kicking in, being like.
Well, it's like even like the movie, like Batman '89.
Yeah.
Like when the Joker has Kim Basinger, Vicky Vale, like, she knows Batman's about to come, so she, like, starts, like, kissing on his arm to, like, appease him, so that in the meantime, and then all of a sudden, she ducks out of the way, and Batman's just, like, bam, punches him, but it's, like, so, like, she had to kind of, like, play along with his game to, like, lure him into this false sense of security. So, yeah, I'm sure women have had to do that throughout history.
Oh, yeah. But it's
probably better now, but it's still kind of, like...
It's better. It's better in that I think, I don't know, I see it, working with theater kiddos, and I see it with some of them who are a lot quicker to just be like, I said no, I'm not interested. Like I see some of these interactions even at a young age, and I'm like, you kid,
they're learning. They're learning. Yes. Well, that's why it's like always. I have a lot of friends who are big in martial arts, and they're like big in like. Well, and I have a lot of friends that are females that are big in martial arts, and they're big on like teaching other females martial arts because it's like anything, and well, I mean anything that's like self-defense, and actually like I think in a couple months like. I know like guns are kind of controversial right now, but there is a woman who does this like she like arms women, basically teaches them how to like for self-defense purposes.
Like how to operate.
I think it's called We the Female, and it's like so I'm going to be interested to hear like what her take on that stuff is. So like so just any way that women can like kind of even the playing field with that kind of stuff, I don't know, it's like it's weird.
I think self-defense is
huge.
Is great. I wish that was. I mean, again, for everyone, and I sort of understand why it's not like taught in PE, but I also feel like it's something that it's not a bad thing for anyone to learn. Like these are some basic ways that you can defend yourself.
Right. Also get one of those fucking zappers on your keychain.
I have one that looks like a cat, like the stabbers.
Yeah.
I love those because sometimes one of my students is like, "What's this?" And I'm like, "Nothing. It's cute. It's a kitty." No, it's a stabby device.
Well, and it's like obviously like we wish the world like in a perfect world you wouldn't have to like learn self-defense, like that you just wouldn't have to deal with those things, but like. The problem is like the world that we want versus the world that has reality. So like if I had daughters, I would kind of want to teach them how to live in the world that's reality because I know that like clearly I wish the world was a different way, but like
it's not.
I want to teach you how to deal with the real world and like you need self-defense, right? Like
well, and I also think that part of teaching self-defense, part of it is it's not just in knowing specific moves. It's an empowerment thing. If I feel and if I feel like I'm capable, if I feel like I know how to take care of myself, that reads.
Right.
And you have this like don't mess with me because I can take care of myself.
Oh, like the females I know that know Muay Thai, so they are confident, because Muay Thai is hardcore. But also, like, I mean, it's not just women. I think men too, like martial arts would help too. Like you said, instill that like, then you're not scared of a fight because you kind of know how to like handle yourself a little bit. And like you said, it just instills a confidence, a capability in you. So it's like I'm definitely pro. That kind of stuff, but is it scary walking around? Like you just walked here.
Oh, I mean,
probably not during the day. Too bad. Yeah.
It's funny. I was actually talking about this with a friend last night. I lived in New York for 10 years.
Oh, that's if you've dealt with that, you've seen some shit.
Well, but what's funny is that like when I was living in New York, I never thought twice about, 4 a.m. walking home from the bar.
Yeah.
Probably a little drunker than I should have been walking home by myself.
And you're younger, you're probably like,
it's
whatever.
Like, whatever. I actually packed a pretty mean punch, but there's people everywhere. There's 24-hour diners and grocery stores and door people, so like
you feel a little more like there's always people around.
There's always people around. It's well lit. Like there was almost never a time where I was walking home late at night and I actually felt unsafe. In Seattle, and I mean I live right off downtown. I spend a lot of time in Pioneer Square.
Right.
It's a very different thing because there's certain areas that after a certain point in the evening, it's so
dark,
deserted.
Secluded.
Dark.
That's where...
No street lights or not a lot of street lights.
Yeah. I've noticed that too in Seattle, and I've only, been in there a few times here and there for things, but like, it's... it's funny, I just had a personal training client who was in New York for a while, and he said the same thing. He's like, man, New York's great if you got like... He's like, what did he say? Like, if you have ADD, it's great. He's like, you can go out at 4 a.m. and there's people. What are you doing out? He's like, there's always people out doing stuff.
True.
It's like exactly what you just said, so that's funny.
It's like, the bar's closed, so you go to the diner and you have a, grilled cheese and pie.
Sounds kind of cool.
It was, I love New York. I miss New York. I go back pretty regularly, although the pandemic kind of threw a wrench in that.
For a while, you couldn't really travel.
Yeah. So I haven't been back as much recently as I would like, but
Now, is that also the theater? That's kind of the connection with New York, right? Big theater shows and
big theater scene. Well, and I went to college there.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of friends there, and it's it's a great city. It's got great history, got great ghost stories.
Oh, I'm sure. Being an old city like that, that's always where it is, right? Like. We found this. It's called the Oxford Bar. I don't know. Have you heard of the Oxford?
I know that
it's a place. I think it's nearby here. I'd have to look up where, but we want to go check it out because we've heard that it's actually haunted.
Oh.
Yeah. And they have like an upstairs area that's kind of cool. Like I don't know. We'll have to.
I'll have to see if I can find some history. The name is ringing a bell.
But we were like, we should do a trip sometime. Like get you involved. Get my buddy Jonathan, who's big into ghosts, so we could like. I don't know, just like go visit some places or something.
That's one of my favorite things to do anytime I travel is what's a haunted spot I can just go to.
Yeah.
Because it's fun, and I like talking to the employees, if it's a bar, or restaurant, or even a hotel, and finding out, what are your stories? So
it's in Snohomish, the Oxford Saloon.
Oh, yeah. That's why I was ringing a bell. Snohomish, yeah.
Yeah, and it supposedly is...
It's not one I've been to before, but I've heard of it.
Right. So when you travel, you like to go find out those locations and stuff. Any faves? Any favorites?
And I'm going to be hopefully making a return trip soon. I love Victoria, BC.
Yep.
And the Empress Hotel in Victoria, BC. In fact,
that just sounds cool.
Oh, it's a stunning hotel.
Well, like you said that last time, hotels are big on being haunted sometimes.
Yeah.
Which always reminded me of like American Horror Story Hotel, which was one of my favorite seasons. And, yeah.
Well, and the Empress is interesting. It has some like specific ghosts attached to it where the history is more known. And some of them are a little bit more reliably. I did an episode on it for Ghoulish. It's been a while. That was probably at least a year ago, if not more.
Okay.
But it's a older hotel. Supposedly the architect haunts it, although I think that's kind of BS because the architect was killed, but he died way far away from the hotel.
Right.
So it could be like a residual haunting, but it's probably not.
Because was that the season American Horror Story where like Evan Peters' character was kind of like the guy that built the hotel and he was still in there?
I think so, because that was
and he was twisted.
Yeah, and they had that was the Lady Gaga vampire season, right?
Yeah. That was sexy vampire.
Sexy vampire.
Yeah.
Some of the and was because the hotel. They used a bunch of stories from actual hotels, but it wasn't an...
You're right.
Yeah, like some of there was some pretty notorious stuff they attached. They
had a bunch of famous serial killers in it, didn't they?
Yeah.
That's what it was. And that was where like Evan Peters first started playing. And then I think they did another season like that where he played a bunch of different old serial killers from the past.
Yeah. I know they did one season that had Richard Ramirez on it, but that was
like the cult season, maybe?
It was the slasher season, I think, unless...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm so lost. That show, that they've done so many different things.
And there's so much weird crossover.
I actually liked the newest season, but I kind of did not understand the ending. I don't know if...
Was that the one on the beach? Did I make up
I think it was the one with the AIDS epidemic happening, basically.
Oh, yeah. And I didn't see that, because
But, like, the ending, I kind of just didn't get it.
Yeah, it's Ryan Murphy. I feel that way about a lot of Ryan Murphy stuff.
It started off really strong, and then I'm like, I don't know really what's going on here at the end. I think it was meant to, like, kind of pay homage to, like, the AIDS, epidemic from in the 80s.
In the 80s, yeah. Because he does return a lot to certain time. I mean, like, I have such weird feelings about Ryan Murphy, because I enjoy American Horror Story,
cool, yeah.
But it's so inconsistent. And I always feel like he starts off big and strong.
Yeah, a lot of seasons are like that.
And then it just gets
a few of them were perfect seasons, like the witch one. I think that was a great one.
I really liked that one. And I actually did really like the slasher season, but part of that is that I have a deep love for
those old slasher films.
The old slasher films.
And it definitely paid homage to like the 80s slasher stuff. That was a good season actually, yeah. I liked the circus one. That was good. And then definitely liked the what was it, like the nut house one?
The insane asylum one. That one. I remember they had that one episode that they filmed, and it was like it followed kind of one specific patient, and they filmed it. Oh man, it's been a long time since I've seen that season. I just remember.
Well, and they had like the alien thing.
Yeah.
Remember at the end, and it was based on that real couple where it was like it was like. I can't remember what the couple's name was, but they based it on that couple that supposedly got abducted by aliens. Yeah.
When I think that's what, because Ryan Murphy does that a lot, where he takes historical cases or figures and plays with them, and sometimes it's really, really effective.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, oh, so close.
Yeah. It's never like disappointing watching, but I know exactly what you mean. It doesn't always hit the mark.
It doesn't. Visually, it's always I mean, he knows how to make a
visually,
very
they're always
interesting thing.
They're great usually, and
like
casting wise, great,
yeah,
and usually performances of the actors are great.
Yeah.
But you're right. Sometimes it's just the writing or something.
It's. I think he gets so many ideas, and he wants to do all these different things. And
it's like too much in one thing.
It's too much in one thing. It's. I talk to this like with my younger playwright students, where I'm like, you need to focus just what's the story you're telling, and
basically
simplify it. Yeah, because your audience needs to be able to follow it, and if there's too much to look at, they don't know. It's. I mean, again,
right. You're storytelling. So if you're storytelling, if there's too much and it doesn't make sense, they're gonna lose the thread basically. So with theater, so let's hear. So when you went to school in New York for theater,
I have 2 theater degrees. I have a undergraduate. I have a BFA in theater arts with a specialization in performance.
Yes.
And then I have a postgrad degree in classical acting and Shakespeare.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So.
So how is that going right now? So you work with students, correct?
I do a lot of educational theater. I do a lot of directing. I have been doing more. I do these teen horror films every summer.
You told me about that last time. That's so cool. Like
we're actually, today is the final day that the students can submit their video auditions.
Yeah.
Because I've been talking to my screenwriter, who's amazing, Sarah Eisenberg, who she just won an Emmy because she's super cool.
For real.
She writes for Muppet Babies.
Like the new Muppet Babies?
Like the new Muppet Babies, yeah.
What medium is that? Is that a cartoon?
Yeah, it's a children's show.
Okay, because I remember the OG one. Like Muppet Babies. Mm-hmm.
But she's an alumni of the theater that we actually did theater together when we were younger. And
I didn't know they brought that. But dude, Gonzo was crazy. Like he's like on drugs for sure or something.
But it's very cute. But she does that by day, and then she's a big horror fan, and so a couple of years ago she started writing the screenplays, But I do.
How many of those like B horror movies have you done then?
This is our 6th year doing the program.
Yeah.
The first year we made one longer film. It was about like 40 minutes long, I think. And every year after we've done 3 films. So I've made 13, and then this year will be 3 new ones. That'll be 14 total.
Oh, that's sick. Now, can you talk about what this series is going to be about, or not really? You kind of keep it secret?
The scripts aren't fully written yet. I can tease some things because...
Yeah, well, we don't want to ruin it either, but...
Well, we're filming everything at this really awesome theater in Seattle called Theater Off Jackson, which is haunted, too.
Ooh, so that adds to it.
I did... I was the horror dramaturg and paranormal dramaturg for a production that went up at Theater Off Jackson a couple years ago. This is pre-pandemic. Called The Brothers Paranormal.
Okay.
And it was a play about these 2 brothers who were paranormal investigators.
Yeah.
Investigating this haunting.
Mm-hmm.
And the director brought me on both to consult on the paranormal side, but also for my horror expertise.
Right.
It was a cool play.
Okay.
They had at one point the actress who was playing like the spirit. They had some really great tricks, rigs. It's a cute theater. It's a good size, but it's a an intimate theater is what we call it.
Okay. Yeah.
And at one point, she like crawls out of the couch. And my favorite thing was to sit in the audience and just watch and listen to how they'd react.
Yeah.
And if
that's unexpected, that could be actually scary, right? Like,
it definitely
suspense.
You would get these because it's right there.
Yeah.
And she was fantastic. She could I think she was a dancer.
Yeah, that definitely would help.
So
they just know how to move their bodies and create
So we're filming everything at this theater, which is haunted. And I had come in when we were doing Brothers Paranormal and led the cast in a little like mini kind of, this is how you would do a ghost hunt.
Yeah.
Freaked some of them out.
Okay.
Because we got some weird readings.
Oh. Actual,
we were in one of the back areas, and I was just demonstrating some equipment. I had like an EMF detector out. I had some other things, and my EMF detector just starts flipping out.
Oh my God, really?
And it was one of those where, like, you're asking questions, and it's just like...
And you're like, I'm not doing this. Yeah,
I put it down so they could see I wasn't activating anything.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of the actors just like, nope. And out of the back room, they're like, nope, don't need to see this. Nope.
They just don't want to think about it.
Don't want to think about it. But we're filming everything there. It's a great old space.
Those old spaces, like they even say like the Comedy Store in LA was like that.
Oh, yeah.
There's something about it's like when you're like in a theater like that. So say you're like in the group, like hanging out with you guys, and we're together. Oh, it feels safe. But it's like those moments when you're like alone in some like back room by yourself. That's where it's like, what the fuck?
And you hear the noise.
Yeah, like
and
what
you
is
say,
that? Is that just a noise, or is that because you could trick yourself too?
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
It could just be a normal noise, but it's like you get yourself in that headspace and.
I know
it's creepy.
I'm debating whether or not it's a good idea. Some of them might be watching this, in which case they're going to know anyway.
Hopefully they are, yeah.
But to tell the students that the theater is haunted.
Yeah.
Because, like, I think some of them are going to think it's awesome, and I think some of them, it will freak them out.
Yeah.
So is it the kind of thing you drop, like, the last day, being like, FYI, this place is haunted. Okay, goodbye.
I would think it's awesome, but... Yeah, I don't know. It depends on like your sensitivity to that stuff,
exactly.
Though, right? Like
exactly.
Just like imagine like seeing something so creepy, but nobody else saw it and nobody else believes you.
While you're filming a horror film, too.
Yeah. Well, that's the creepy thing about like horror films. You're doing these things that are putting you in this scary headspace already. And some of the roles, like you got to think when you're playing like a serial killer or something, like you're already getting into this weird, that's got to be hard to get into those characters sometimes.
Absolutely.
You take yourself to some places like that you don't really know that you had that in you, kind of, right?
Well, I think as an actor, I think, and you learn all these different methods of acting.
And then how do you come back from that?
Well, and that's just it. Like there's method acting, which is that immersion
that's like like when I did pro wrestling, I would say it was kind of method acting in a sense because what I would do is I would just pretend everything was real.
Yeah.
Like I'm fighting this person, I am this character.
And I believe this.
I believe everything I'm doing. I believe the things he's doing to me actually hurt me. Because pro wrestling does hurt, but like we're also like working with each other.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm gonna sell things like they hurt more than they did.
Of course, yeah.
But like when I was out there, I would feel like it really did hurt that bad. And I would feel like the stuff my character was supposed to feel, I just turned into that.
Yeah.
So that's like the easiest way I could do it.
Yeah.
But there's probably a lot of different methods, right?
There's a lot of different methods, and you have to be really careful because it's where you have actors who go so deep into a headspace that it actually starts to mess with them.
I'm thinking of Heath Ledger Joker. That's like the biggest one Where like he never came back from that.
He never came back from that, and it's funny. There was Laurence Olivier, I think, who had been working with who was it? I can't remember the movie. It was where the other, it was, American actor, and he was like methoding and Laurence Olivier is just sitting back being like, it's acting. Just it's called acting. Like, you don't like
chill out.
Chill out, man.
So like some people take that a little far.
I think that my personal issue with method acting is that it is basically, we all have our little tricks we use.
Yeah.
And there's times, especially in camera.
Well, it's like when Jim Carrey was doing it for Man on the Moon. He was just being an asshole. It's like, dude, could you just not be an asshole?
Well, Jared Leto is renowned for,
being an asshole.
Yeah, when he did, I think it was Suicide Squad, and he's like sending dead rats to people. And I'm like,
I think it's like, you took it a little too far.
No, that's inappropriate.
What about like Daniel Day-Lewis?
I just like,
there will be blood.
I admire...
You're a bastard in a basket. I take my straw and I drink your milkshake. That's one of my favorite movies, actually.
I just like saying that I'm going to drink someone's milkshake.
I take my straw and I drink your milkshake. Yeah.
I like saying that to students because most of them are young enough they don't get the reference.
Right, they're like, "What's that movie?" It's only like, to me that's like a high movie.
Yeah,
like that's a great movie.
But it's a pop culture reference that hasn't
stuck.
No. And so,
like, me and you would know it. Some of my friends around the same age would know it.
Mm-hmm.
If I would go to like the 21-year-old that I work with, they'd be like, "What the fuck?
What is that?"
First of all, I don't watch anything longer than 15 seconds. Because if it's not, which actually though, TikTok has some pretty cool horror shit. And YouTube shorts, like YouTube shorts, there's some creepy. Have you ever seen like the back rooms? We probably talked about this last time.
Yeah. I think we did talk about this last time. Yeah.
Those are creepy. There's a bunch of them that are pretty fun.
What drives me a little crazy with TikTok is that I have friends who send me some of the like haunted stuff where something happens. They're like, "Did you see this? Isn't that crazy?" I was like, "Yes, but you're looking at this clip. You don't know anything about, like, you don't know what kind of environment, what kind of like controlled environment." Like, yeah, like it's yes, if this is real, it's very, very scary and creepy, but you are assuming this is real, which is delightful.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And good for you,
can
kiddo,
fake so much stuff. Like,
you can fake so much stuff.
There was a YouTube short where it was like this box, and it like they just put this box, and it was
what's
weird.
in the box?
Yeah, what's in the box? Yeah, that's a great movie too. Actually,
it's a great movie.
That's a great line.
Yeah,
but it's like this box sitting there, and then like basically it says like you have to watch it, like you can't not watch it. And so they're like, well, what happens if you don't watch? And so when they look away from it, all of a sudden like there's this guy in the box, and he's like a little bit more out of the box, like it's just his eyes and his like fingertips. And it's like, so as long as they watch him, he can't move. But if you look away, he's like coming more out.
It's like the weeping angels.
And I can't remember what happens, but like eventually, I don't remember. But it was pretty good for a short.
Yeah, my cat does that to me all the time.
Just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more.
I disappear behind the wall, and she's like right there. No, I think, well, and I think sometimes with the podcast, this is something that where I've had people who are like, you can be such an asshole about stuff, and I'm like, yes, but
but if you're looking for truth,
my ask is that people allow themselves to ask questions and don't take everything they're shown at face value. I am not saying to not believe in anything, but there's nothing wrong with asking a question.
Well, no, and almost you should, because it's like, it's really fun to believe stuff.
Of course.
Like, I want to believe that, Sasquatch is real. And I want to find him. But, like, it's so fun. Or aliens. I want to believe it so bad that I'm going to have, like, bias. I'm going to have, like...
Of course.
What do they call it? Confirmation bias. Where, like, I'm just going to believe, like, oh, this is real. Because I want... If you want something to... Like, say you're in love with someone. You're like, I really want them to be in love with me. So I'm going to look at everything they do that points to that.
Dissect
it's like...
it.
And then you're, like, delusional the whole time. They want nothing to do with you. It's like, But it's like... And it's like that with stuff you want. So, like, if you really want a ghost story... I think I even heard you say that on, like, one of the last podcasts you did where, like... You're like, oh, it was this family that had this haunted house, but it was like they were so wanting it to be haunted that they just kind of like
you made
it happen, but it wasn't really haunted. Probably not. They just were like making it up, basically. But it's real to them, I guess.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, and that's just it too. There's like your own personal reality. You know, it's in literature we talk about the unreliable narrator. We are incredibly unreliable narrators.
Right.
You know, like we see things.
If there's an incident that happens in a public space and they ask everybody about it, everybody reports something different.
And it's
slightly different. Usually.
Well, no, it's that they've done a couple TV shows where you've seen like the same story from different people's perspectives. It was The Affair is the one that I think of and
it's kind of cool concept.
It's a great concept, but it is very like. To you, this is what happened.
Yeah.
And anyone saying it differently, you're like, no, you're remembering it wrong. You're the wrong one. I'm the right one.
I never think that because it's like, I think it's just different perspectives.
Oh, absolutely.
Of the same thing.
One, and our memories are
faulty.
Oh, so faulty. And we're so susceptible to suggestion.
Well, I'm also like a really optimistic person, so I'll like remember things with rose-colored glasses. Like I'll always put the like, you know, like whether it's like an X or something, like, oh, that was great, but it probably wasn't. You know, like
I haven't thought that.
Or like I won't have
exes.
any like. I usually don't have any like hard feelings about like not just exes, but
what's
just
that like?
I don't know. It's weird. I'm like that. Like even if someone kind of did me wrong, I'm like, they were an okay guy. I could see the good in them. You know, like
I had one specific ex who I think has ruined me for all of their exes, but I was a lot less cynical prior to that.
I think that we definitely get more cynical with age, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I'll be like, there's younger people I work with, and I'm like, you are fucked, like in the head. Yeah. What do you do? Like, they'll like worry about somebody texting and all this, and I'm like, that person has no idea that you're sitting here like freaking out about every response. It's like they're just like living their life, and you're here like waiting on their responses and shit, and it's
they
like
don't care.
They don't give a fuck. You need to like focus on yourself.
Just go live your life.
And then it's like you're basing your state of mind on whether this person's responding or not. And it's like, why are you putting yourself through this imaginary pain? Like,
and giving them power.
All that power. It's like, put the power in yourself. So I think that's one good thing that comes with age. You learn not to do that.
No.
You put your power in yourself and focus on what you like. And
well, it's fun. Like, Gabi and I have known each other for, God, how many years now?
You guys can tell in the podcast because you have such a good... like playful, like she said something about her throat and you made some comment in the last one and I'm like, oh, I was like, damn, you're going there. Okay.
I mean, we've known each other for it was pre-pandemic, so I guess it was like since like 2019. So
that's a while now.
A while now, but she thinks it's hysterical and doesn't believe me half the time. Like there was a time if you were to ask my my friends from middle school, from high school, who I'm still in contact with, I was the cheerful, optimistic, like bubbly.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, you weren't. And I was like, I was.
I mean, you're still kind of bubbly in a sense about stuff you're passionate about.
That's true.
But but definitely more like real.
Yeah.
You're real about shit.
Yeah.
Which is why you're like the debunker of the show, kind of.
Yeah.
Like
although she's more debunky now than she used to be.
Yeah.
I'm very proud.
That's good. Yeah, that is good. I mean, that's like, I like how you guys always say that, like a healthy dose of debunking.
Yeah.
It's kind of a catchphrase, but it's good. It keeps it like honest, you know?
There's times where this happens to me on my ghost tours.
Yeah. Where
somebody will come up and show me something and they'll ask my opinion, and when it's young people like kids, I'll usually
have some fun.
I go for as like, yeah, this is great, this is fun, Santa Claus. Yeah. You never know. Yes, this could absolutely be real. With adults, I will sometimes say, do you want me to give you my honest to goodness feedback as a professional, or would you like me to
the fun story
have
Zach
fun with
Baggins
this?
story.
Do you want me to Zach Baggins it? That's a guy. That should become
call it the Zach Baggins.
The Zach Baggins effect.
Entertainment value.
Yeah. And but partially because there's times I feel like I'm killing people's joy, and I'm like, it's not my intention, but you're showing me this picture and you want my opinion, so
yeah,
I can Zach Baggins it, or I can actually give you an opinion.
Right. It's like a blur on a photo. It's not. Yeah, just chill out.
And it could and I try to, even when I'm being Kim, I try to say, but we don't know, because you know what we would need? We would need more pictures. I need to see a series of pictures.
Need solid evidence.
I need solid evidence. Could it possibly be something? Sure. Could it also be a reflection or a bug or dust or your thumb?
But pictures, like in movies, using that idea of like where somebody's in a painting, or like,
oh sure,
or like Insidious, where like the witch is getting closer and closer and closer to him, and all those like Polaroids,
which is cool, man.
That's one creepy. Of the scariest parts of that episode, honestly, because like that lady is horrifying.
Oh yeah, and the actor, I believe, is a man, and that was
okay. Well, that's creepy because like.
I think that's addressed in the second one.
I feel like we're all, when we're kids, we've at least had one scary thing about a witch.
Oh yeah,
have you ever had that? Like.
I
had a dream once where I was like running around my aunt and uncle's house, and like there was this witch. She was like the neighbor. It must have been a dream, and I could still picture her crazy eyes looking at me. And it's like, and that's like from the time I was a kid. So like witches can be horrifying.
I think for me, because I started watching slasher films so young,
it desensitized you, maybe.
Well, my nightmares were weirdly, again, like I think it's because the first slasher film I ever remember seeing was Friday the 13th.
Oh, so good, yeah.
I had so many Jason Voorhees themed nightmares as a child. And this was back when USA used to do their all night long Friday the 13th marathons.
Right.
And my parents, because it was the 90s, my brother and I, if it was the summertime or it was a Friday night, we could stay up all night watching movies. And my parents were like, if you're tired tomorrow, that's on you.
Yeah.
And which also, P.S., excellent parenting strategy, because I learned to self-regulate.
Yeah, it kind of like puts it on you, and then you learn. It's
it
like,
did.
Yeah.
It forced me to learn, like, okay, I am making this choice. I will be tired tomorrow.
It's kind of like, instead of not letting your kids drink, let them get hungover and then learn the lesson the hard way. Right?
And that's such a 90s, like, mentality. But it, again, that was...
I kind of see the value in that. Yeah.
I think, again, there's that balance, but I watched a lot of stuff when I was younger that when we had a cabin in the woods.
Yeah.
And I have a nightmare from when I was little that I to this day have such a vivid memory of this creature who would slowly materialize in the bedroom. Who would be...
That's horrifying.
It would, and he had, tusks.
Anything where something is in your bedroom with you is terrifying to me.
And we had bunk beds,
because that's
too.
That's like supposed to be your safe place where you're sleeping. Anything while you're sleeping is creepy.
You're so vulnerable.
Like, like the Men in Black thing, from what is that, like the Point Pleasant, or what was that with like the Mothman shit?
Oh yeah,
where, the government like it was like they were these men in black, but like they would come in and they would talk to you while you're sleeping, but you were paralyzed, you couldn't move, and they had like weird like eye things on, but then they were smiling the whole time.
Smiling is so...
And then they were talking to you like this, and they're all wasn't anything, and they're talking, you can hear them talking, and you're like, you're frozen, you can't move. So imagine this thing above your bed like this, like, hi there, I don't know, it's like talking, it's like, isn't that movie Smile?
I was going to ask if you'd seen it.
There's something terrifying about just a smile.
The smile that's...
it's
that's huge, but the eyes are dead.
Even the Joker, like Batman, like Jack Nicholson, they did a good job with that. It was creepy, there's something about a smile that's nothing is moving. Yeah. It's just this like dead.
And the penetrating gaze.
Yeah.
Non-blinking, just staring at you.
Right. That was like that even in American Horror Story. They had that clown. Remember when he had the smile face thing?
Oh, yeah.
That was terrifying.
Oh, with the teeth. Oh, was that...
That was like from...
Was that Freak Show?
That was from Freak Show, I'm pretty sure. But he's been in other seasons, too. They would bring him back, I think.
Terrifier. Have you seen Terrifier?
No, but I really want to. Because I heard the second one is maybe the most horrifying movie that's ever existed.
No.
Wow, whoever pumped it up told me that. But
I mean, to be fair, okay, a normal person might say that.
But he's terrifying. If I saw that in my room...
Oh, Art the Clown?
Yeah, I'd be fucking horrified.
What's funny is, okay, so, and this is, so I had interviewed the actor who plays Art the Clown.
Really?
I did. And
is he a nice guy?
Yes.
You're going to say they're always like these super nice guys in real life. But.
I'm like, I don't want him to like see this and be like, no, he's very nice. He's very weird. Yeah. But like, I'm weird. I approve of weird. But what's funny is that we realized something during our conversation, which is that he lived in Queens. He lived in Astoria, Queens. Mm-hmm. I lived in Astoria, Queens for a while. I have a friend who's friends with his roommate, or his roommate at the time.
Okay.
And so we realized we had like people we knew in common. Yeah. And I'd seen him in a theater production. He had toured. Like we had all these strange like, oh shit, yeah, I saw you as Buddy the Elf in Elf when you came to, Yeah. So no, The first one is the second one the second Terrifier is legitimately it's very interesting.
That's the one I heard is one you want to see.
And I think you can kind of watch it standalone. Like the first one, there's some stuff from the first one which
I haven't been watching horror because like I have this weird thing where like I can watch them alone, but it's like more fun to watch with people.
It is. I can't remember if I talked about this.
I should just start watching them by myself.
Right? I mean, it's all I ever do. I mean, I watch them with people too, but I just have this need to consume horror.
You're so big on it though. You like still have like DVD, Blu-ray, right?
Oh, isn't that I have VHS tapes of movies that have never made their way to DVDs because I'm that asshole.
Because you like that movie.
Because I like that, or I just want
it's almost like you have this passion for the history of horror.
Oh, I love the history of horror.
Yeah,
I mean,
like the same way someone would like listen to like old albums and have a history of rock or like. It's like it's an art that you appreciate.
Well, and I mean,
which is kind of why you're like an expert at it.
Well, and I panel about it. I'm prepping for Crypticon, which comes up in May, so I'm going to be a panelist there, and
you do a lot of not just my podcast. I know you do other ones.
I do a lot of podcasts
and stuff. Yeah.
I'm doing a podcast in a couple of weeks. I'm guesting on a YouTube show, Gory B Movies, who's lovely.
Sick.
And we're talking about the second Evil Dead movie.
Right.
Which
I've only seen the first one.
Oh, the second one is fun.
I need to see all of them and the series. I've heard they're so good.
The series is Ash vs. Evil Dead. It's the whole franchise is fantastic, and there's a new movie coming out.
With the actor, same actor?
Not with Bruce Campbell. Okay. At least, I mean, as far as I know.
Maybe he'll do like a cameo or something.
I wouldn't be shocked. He cameoed on the other reboot they did, but no, there's.
God, why is horror so good?
Well, because as long as we've been telling stories, sitting around a campfire, we gravitate. Like, we tell ghost stories. You look at even some of the early Greek dramas.
There is something fun about it.
Well, and it's that safe way to explore our anxiety.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know.
No, you're right. It probably relieves anxiety in a sense.
It does. Well, I have severe anxiety.
Yeah.
And I have always used horror, and I was a 90s kid, so like I didn't know I had anxiety because you didn't talk about anxiety in the 90s.
No, nobody talked about any mental health issues.
No, I was in my 30s when I was diagnosed with anxiety. Yeah. Like I didn't get diagnosed till my 30s, and I liked horror because I understood the formula.
Yeah.
So I knew what to expect, and it was a way to like weirdly comforting to exercise all that.
Yeah. Because it's like cathartic in a way. It's
cathartic,
right? Yeah.
and it's you think about. I love the scary stories to tell in the dark books.
I think we talked about that last time. Yeah. I was obsessed with them. They are it's the illustrations that really. And I know they banned those illustrations for a while, and they put some shittier ones in, and it's like you can't have that series without the OG. Like they put these other illustrations in to make it say like better for kids, and it's like.
But kids like that shit.
Right, I loved it. I mean, I remember being scared in like not public, but the school library, like scared to look at them.
But drawn scared.
To them. Yeah, it's and I remember you'd like check it out, and you'd be like, oh my god, and then you'd put it in your backpack, and you'd be like. Oh my god. And then you take it home and you're alone in your room reading it in the dark and you'd be like, oh my god. You know, it's like I remember like there was the one with like the vampire that like broke through the window. That was such a creepy one.
Yeah. The horse skull. The horse with the snake that was in the horse skull was one that always. I have this giant painting in my living room.
I feel like I need to purchase those books. Just have.
Oh, I have all, because I actually have been looking to adapt them into children's theater.
That would be dope.
Because I'm seeing this even now with my summer of horror
Well, they did
stuff.
the one movie, but it was really not good.
I was so disappointed in that.
I actually have it on DVD because I thought it would be pretty dope. It was enjoyable to watch, but it did no justice to how scary the books were.
Yeah.
It's just a fun, like, kind of almost childish horror movie. Yeah. It's kind of for kids in a sense.
Except kids can handle. I mean, again, like, I look at my summer of horror program is supposed to be for teens, right?
Right.
I have so
teens can handle some shit,
but I have so many kids who want to do the films because, and I would have been that kid. Yeah. They love scary stuff, and we've written parts for kids before. I had a girl last year who played like a little demon child, and she would, even when we weren't needing her to do it, she would stand at windows and just be like stare.
Creeping people out.
She loved it.
It's fun to scare people.
It's fun. But it's I don't know, like, I feel like, and again, this is the 90s kid in me talking, I feel like when I was a kid, The Dark Crystal, great movie, but like dark and creepy.
You're right. I think we did talk. We might have talked about this.
We may have, yeah.
Kids, they trust the kids with so much more.
Oh, yeah.
Like now they're like, oh, we have to fucking coddle and protect them from everything. It's like, but then they don't learn any cool lessons. Like, think about the movies. Like even like Land Before Time. His mom gets killed by a T-Rex.
Bambi.
Like, Bambi like,
is. I'm still not okay with that movie.
I would say like All Dogs Go to Heaven was crazy. Like they were smoking, drinking. There was a gay alligator. Like, come on, remember that shit? Like a gay singing alligator. I'm like, they trusted kids with so much more shit.
Cause you're trying to prep kids to be
like
adults.
Charlie's smoking cigars, and they're. I think they're like drinking. I don't remember what it was, but it's meant to be like they're gambling alcoholic dogs basically that run a casino.
What? Even like
it's like
American Tail, the cats.
So scary.
So scary, and I mean, like they have to be refugees because the cats are killing all the mice. Like
it's scary.
It's scary, but
how good is a movie without real scary shit though? It's not that good.
It's not as good, and. I see the end result when you, like, I get, like, the real world is scary enough, but I feel like that's just it. The real world is scary enough. You don't do your kid any favors if you pretend like it's not.
Right. Remember how scary, like, Never Ending Story, that wolf?
Oh, and the Nothing.
Wolf?
And the nothing too. Just the idea of the nothing.
The idea of the nothing is horrible. That big ass turtle, like. Well, when the horse died, that's like the saddest part ever.
Killed me. I'd have to leave.
That's Artrax, or what's his name? Artrax.
Yeah, because it was. And
that kid did such a good job. Like
he was at Crypticon last year. Really? He's not a kid anymore.
Yeah. So you met adult Atreyu?
I did. Lots of tattoos. Very possessive wife.
My God.
I was in the VIP room and I was talking to
super cool you got to meet that guy though.
Oh yeah, you're a very
like think about our childhood,
too.
Like people from our age, that was such a huge movie.
And he's lovely. He is so sweet. It was just very funny cuz like I think his wife has gotten used to like probably people aggressively hitting on him. So she's just like there, and it was just very, very amusing. But he's so sweet.
That does have to be weird, like being
weird.
In a relationship with somebody that's famous.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
Like there's no real like there's no textbook to teach people how to handle that. You know, so like I mean maybe it makes sense that she's kind of like that, you know, like
I think the only way...
Or maybe she could chill. I don't know.
I think at some point you have to kind of just like lean into it being funny.
I mean, it's kind of funny.
If you trust your spouse, I would say you can both have a good laugh about it. But
that's a healthy relationship.
Right.
Maybe theirs is not that healthy, right?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But he was very, very sweet.
Healthy relationships, they seem to be much more like trust.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what I would hope for if I had a relationship, was like... Just because you see me talking to somebody doesn't mean
anything.
Yeah.
Because also, well, it's
like I wouldn't. It's like I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't do that to anybody. You know, like So.
Well, and I just like, I don't know. I've run into this where, you know, I enjoy, even though I'm an extroverted introvert, right?
Yeah.
And so I like being social. I have lots of, like, I'm going out.
I feel like a lot of like artists, like actors, you know, what you do, people are like that. Like, because even me, I'm kind of introverted, but I'm extroverted in a sense. You know what I mean?
I need to recharge.
Like, I hate attention, but I need attention.
I need attention.
But I only like attention for like things that I've put work into.
I'm basically a cat.
Right. I hate attention for like no apparent reason.
Yes. Yeah.
I like attention for things that I've worked and put effort into.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you did a really good job. You made an album of music and it's really good. We liked it. You know, like that I don't mind attention for. But like, just like that random weird attention, like getting hit on at the bar.
Nope.
Or like, it's like,
Nope,
please
nope,
just don't look at me. Or
no,
like,
thank you, octopus.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's well, and that's like Crypticon for me. You know, I enjoy paneling. I have people who
You probably meet so many cool people.
Oh, super cool.
With similar interests.
It's where I've met so many people who I've formed like great working relationships with.
Right.
We call it horror summer camp.
Yeah.
But it's also like I have people who come and see my panels year after year where I just enjoy them because they like what I have to say and I do a true crime one called True Tales of Murder.
Yeah.
And we've kind of Tori, who's lovely, she does the panel with me now. It's last couple years it's been just the two of us. And we basically, I mean, like, the most wretched crime you can imagine.
Yeah.
That's what we'll talk about. We show the gruesomest crime scene photos, the most disgusting, wretched, whatever.
Yeah.
But we've gotten to this point where we get the big room. We have this huge group that comes to see us.
Right. So, like, in that setting, you are well known and, like, respected for your knowledge of this thing. So, I mean, that's cool. And that's that's where you want attention.
Yes.
Because it's a thing that you actually really love, that you're passionate about, but that you've also put a lot of work in because you've done a bunch of work with researching and you've gained this level of respect from your peers in that same field over years and years and years of doing this thing. So then that kind of attention, I feel like, ends up feeling good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's where you feel like that it's just that appreciation from your peers. You know, so like that feels good.
I have
Even if you're introverted, that's the kind of like attention you like.
It's the good energy. It's the kind of energy where, you know, Gabi and I did Pacific Northwest True Crime Fest in October.
Right.
And
so many cool opportunities, yeah.
It was so much fun meeting other people who did similar things to us, but even just the live recording that we did.
Yeah.
You know, we had a great turnout. We had a really responsive audience. We had people coming up to us afterwards telling us how much they enjoyed the presentation. And it's that acknowledgement of like, we both work really hard to put in that extra research, to put in that extra care in how we tell a story.
You're not just bullshitting. You do your work. You
do our work.
Your due diligence.
Yeah. And it's why we're a bi-weekly podcast, not a weekly podcast,
because it's like, so like, that's the thing. Like, I'm pumping out 2 of these a week because I'm getting
amazing.
Well, it's amazing, but it's fun and it's great conversations. But like, there is minimal to little prep that I do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, because it is just conversations with people that I find very interesting.
Yes.
Which is a blast. But if I was going to do like a podcast where I was talking about something scientific or like, you know, because I've had some experts on here that are scientific and they know their shit when it comes to fitness or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, you know, we had that hormone specialist in here. She was crazy, like an encyclopedia talking about like everything. But you know, if I was, or like doing what you guys do, you have to put in this time and effort to research what you're talking about before you talk about it.
Yeah.
So since mine is just a fun, like shooting the shit conversation, like we can say something that might be wrong and it's not a big deal.
Right.
You know, like, and okay, so somebody's like we had a girl on here and she did some math wrong and we got so many comments. It was so funny. And I was like, oh, because she was like talking about OnlyFans and like, I could make this much money. And she was like way off on her math. And I didn't even realize it. The people in the comments were like, your math's wrong. Your math's wrong.
Low stakes, man.
I'm like, yeah, I understand the math's wrong. But like her point was still valid.
Yes.
Like, just chill. She made a mistake. She's human. Like, That's also, do you guys get a lot of weird comments and shit? Like, or do you ever get negative comments or good, or do you just not read them?
It's funny because like, and this comes back to like my severe anxiety. I try really hard to not read something, and Gabby, God bless her,
gobbles it up.
Well, she runs our Instagram, and so she's the one that gets the brunt of the comments, and she's very, very lovely because I get the nice things. I don't know if I know a couple times people have posted, like, there was a guy who didn't like that this was way back, we had done something with Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And
so it was just a difference of ideology.
Yeah, and the person posted a comment being like, Black Lives Matter is fascist. I don't know whatever they said. And it was but it was so stupid that you couldn't be insulted by it because you're like,
well, it has nothing to do with the actual content. It was just a difference of ideology. It's kind of like we had like a negative review at the bar I work at once, and it was like, you know, something about the masks and fascist and all this stuff, and it was like, we could even agree with you, but it wouldn't matter because this is a rule. Like, we have to do this to operate. So like, you can't get mad at us. Like, if you want to write your politicians or whatever you're mad about, do that. But like, we need to operate. So like, don't blame us for something. I mean, like, whatever, you know, like, I don't know, but it was a weird, like, why would you give the bar a negative review for something they have no control over? You know, like,
we got a negative review at Spooked once that was like, loved the tour, fabulous tour guide, amazing, you know, experience. Yeah. Parking was really difficult, 1 star.
Like, what is, I've seen stuff like that too. Like, I can't remember what it was. It was like great food. Yeah. Loved the experience. They need to remodel. And it was like, wait, so...
Are you paying for this remodel?
Yeah, and it was, I don't even think it was remodel. It was like, because remodel I could understand because maybe the place was like old and out of date, so they felt crummy. It wasn't remodel. It was like, the decor needs to be different or something. It was something like silly where it's like, so just because you didn't like the style of decor, but you enjoyed your food, you said the server was a great server, you had great service, you're giving them a negative review based on the aesthetic appearance of the place? Like, what the fuck?
If that's where your mind goes to, though, I'm like, you're looking for something.
Well, true.
And what's missing in your life that's what you're looking for?
That's the other thing is, like, you got to remember most of the time, like, say we have a podcast and someone's just like, you know, like, oh, you shouldn't even have a podcast, you're an idiot or something. And it's like, you look at them, it's like they have like 4 followers, they've literally done nothing, and it's like, okay. You know, like, it's just funny, like, it's usually people projecting their own issues onto you if they don't like it. You know, like... Yeah.
It says more about the person than I think it does the product. But it's...
Well, say, like, even if I, like, okay, I don't like Black Lives Matter for whatever reason, like that guy. Like, what... If you like ghost stories and you enjoy the content you guys are putting out, like, who cares if you guys have an ideology that's slightly different than his? Like, you could still enjoy your show.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. That just seems silly.
And I think if nothing else, I don't even think the person who left the review actually listened to the show. What they probably did is saw...
One post.
Because I think on our Instagram, this was back during some of the stuff that was happening downtown Seattle back in
things were heated at that time.
Things were heated.
So I get it.
And I think Gabby had made a specific post on the Instagram because she runs the Instagram because she's an angel and does all of that stuff because I'm so I'm like, did you just search for people who had done that and then went on all these things to post about it? Which again, like, my bro, maybe do something different with your life.
Yeah, you need some actual real issues in your life if that's what you
like. Get a hobby.
That's it. Half these people literally, that is all they are, is these trolls. Yeah. So they're spending all their time just trolling, and it's like, because I remember when that did happen, like, my band, we posted something in support of that too.
Yeah.
And well, first I posted something I shouldn't have that was a little too passionate, like, if you don't agree with this, fuck you type, you know, like, because I was kind of like. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't about me. I'm just a white guy. This is about... Because I'd read this article about performative allyship and, like, not wanting to just, like, make it about you as a white person, like, and not doing it for brownie points. But it's like... But we posted something, like, to say, hey, we, you know, like, this is wrong. It shouldn't be happening. But it's like, if one of our, you know, fans that liked our music didn't like that, it's like, but what does that have to do with the music? Like, you could still enjoy the music, like...
And those kinds of comments bother me a lot less because I'm like, this has nothing to do with anything.
No.
Like,
it doesn't even have to do with you, really.
No, this is not a failing on my research. It's not a failing on a performance. It's, you didn't like an ideology.
It's a total difference of opinion about ideology.
And I'm comfortable
what's right
having
or wrong.
this difference of opinion here.
Yeah,
like,
especially if you believe in it, what you believe in. You know, like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but no, we got a message from somebody at one point. Again, I've been trying to watch a little bit of some of our early episodes. I held back a little less, and I think it got me into trouble a little bit because...
Like saying stuff you believe in, kind of?
Yes. I mean, saying things I believed in, but, like, we had a couple messages from people who did not appreciate my, like, full-on scullying. And at one point, you know, the conversation was had of like, it's. And
so people listening, Scullying would be the debunking. Because he was the one that was a skeptic.
Yeah, Scully was the skeptic. Mulder was the I believe in everything.
Yes.
And
Scully kept it real.
And
X-Files, by the way, for you kids.
For you infants.
It's a show about unsolved crazy ass mysteries and
they're
hillbillies under the bed and
they're like
aliens.
gonna reboot it.
They've done it once already.
But like without our OG Mulder and Scully, like reboot.
I mean, could be cool.
It
is weird. Like they never have any original ideas. They just reboot. However, remember we talked about Wednesday. That show was fucking great.
That show was great. I will say I just saw. I went to an early screening of the new Scream.
I heard you say that. Now tell me about it.
I am a huge fan of the franchise. My very first panel I ever did at Crypticon back in 20...
I love Scream. I remember when the first one came out, I was actually still young enough where I was terrified. Like, I was like, I can't believe I just saw that.
Yeah, it was...
Like just seeing someone take a knife and fucking... Like, they showed it going in.
And the Drew Barrymore of it all. That
was where the OG, like, that was the scariest scene. Like, dude, yeah. The Scream movies are dope.
I like all the movies.
I liked the last one a lot, the newest one.
So did I. And I wasn't sure, you know, I very much, I love Sydney as a character. Yeah. I knew that she wasn't going to be in it. Neve Campbell.
Also, the new one, she's not in it.
Neve Campbell had a very public, like, when they approached her. Because
she was in the last new one.
She was.
And killed it.
Well, and she wasn't happy with the compensation that was offered to be in this new one. And she was very public about it, and so she is not in it.
Yeah.
Which I respect. That being said, having seen the movie...
They don't need her.
Outside of being like, hey, Sydney's still here, she did not need to be in this movie at all. And so I'm kind of curious how they would have organically worked her in the original
maybe
idea.
It was unnecessary. Now is
Courtney Cox is still in it. Yes.
Still in it.
But she is a smaller part than
the movie before.
In some of the other ones. Like they're definitely,
because that's one thing that was cool about the last new one before this one. Like the OGs were like full on in the movie. It wasn't just Candy. And that's so sad. He died. Yeah, that was spoiler alert. But it's already been over a couple years.
It's been like But
I do want to see the new one, and I think the casting looked pretty dope.
I loved. I would say next to the original.
Yeah.
It might be my favorite.
Yeah, so that's high praise.
I absolutely loved it. Now that being said, I have seen people swinging everywhere. Some people who loved it. Some people who think it's trash. That's horror for you.
I definitely want to see it, though. I love Scream movies.
For me, it's such
iconic.
a great...
It's iconic.
Well, it's one of the few franchises that has, this is now, we're up to number 6.
it came from such a cool place too. The original.
Well, and I love the whodunit element to it.
Yeah, those are always fun
because it's not.
You never really know.
You don't, and it's that's what I think keeps it fresh.
It's usually a surprise too.
It's a surprise. You don't have. It's not Jason Voorhees being resurrected again or Michael Myers being resurrected again. Each movie,
you don't know.
You don't know who's behind the mask, and so you have. This both we recognize the Ghostface mask and the Ghostface voice.
So it's the so that is cool. That's a cool thing because like you get that Michael Myers thing, so it's like the same scary guy.
It's recognized. We didn't go all Halloween 3 with it.
You don't know who he is.
You don't know who he is,
or who he or she,
or who they are.
And
I love urban horror. I love urban horror.
Yeah.
And I love that they set this in New York City, even though,
dude, that's cool. Yeah,
it's city. It was the New York of it all is a little bit like this could have been almost any big city, but Candyman is a favorite of mine.
I never saw the Candyman or the new one.
Both very good. The OG Candyman I watched with my brother.
Yeah,
when I was far too young to probably see this movie. He found it on, I don't know, HBO or Showtime at some point.
I remember seeing like the VHS tape at the movie store and always being like too scared to get it.
It's terrifying.
Because that's how it was for all the horror movies when I was young.
It's beautiful though. Like Tony Todd, who
plays the villain.
Who plays Candy. Well, and that's I think why Candyman's such a compelling character is that he was not born a villain. He was created. And the folklore of it and this whole idea of this character who is in the original, this woman who's researching urban legends and the folklore of it and finds this story and you're in the slums in Chicago.
Kind of gritty.
Yeah. And it's today, the original movie does have some of its own like problematic features
like most movies from
the 90s, yeah. But featuring, you have this like iconic villain, and I really loved I thought the newer one was fantastic. Again, it complemented the original very well.
Was that Jordan Peele?
So Jordan Peele produced it.
Oh, but he didn't direct it.
Nia DaCosta, woman, directed it.
Nice.
Yeah, and I thought she did a brilliant job. I loved the film. I love the franchise. I even like the part 2 and part 3, which aren't great movies, but I love Tony Todd passionately.
Yeah,
he's very much one of your like a Lin Shaye. He has made a living as this fantastic horror actor.
Yeah.
And he does other gigs, obviously. He has such an iconic voice. He does a lot of theater. But he is somebody who relishes the horror genre, has made a living in the horror genre and a presence in the horror genre. And I think, I love the actors.
It's kind of like Robert Englund, right? Like,
Robert Englund. Felissa Rose is another one. I met her again. I met her at Crypticon last year. She was in the sleepaway camp. That was her big, and she's lovely and sweetest human on the planet. And these are people who they love that genre movies are what have given them a career.
Right. They embrace it instead of like turning away from it. Yeah.
And I adore, one of the things I love about the Crypticon convention, which is going to be happening in May in Seattle, it happens out by the airport.
That's sick though.
It's a fantastic convention.
I would even enjoy that. I'm not even like big a horror movie fan as you, but I think it would be just fun to go. It's
such a lovely, like everybody there is so nice, and it's
because I'm not a huge comic book fan, but I know I could go to a Comic-Con type thing and have a blast too. Like
I just went to Emerald City this year for the first time ever because the convention center is like 3 blocks from my apartment.
So that's dope. Yeah, that's convenient.
And it was fun. It's a little overwhelming because there's a lot of people there, but it was fun.
Right.
But I love Crypticon. It never gets overwhelmingly large. It's a really good size, and the guests are so kind. The panelists, I mean, I'm a panelist, so I shouldn't say this, but the panelists are great. Panelists know what they're talking about. But it's just fun. And you're around people who like this stuff.
They like the same thing. So going back to the Scream movie. So that was I always think that was such a cool one because it was like after all the Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah,
and like he was kind of, it was kind of like, because I got really into watching all those Freddy movies, and I could see where they started like losing. It was like people were like kind of over it. He did the New Nightmare, which is pretty dope.
New Nightmare is amazing.
I love that. Yeah, that was great.
And you see the seeds of Scream in that.
I agree.
That self-aware, that meta horror.
So that's like 94-ish, right? And
that was a couple years before the first
You can definitely
Scream.
see the seeds of that in that. And then all of a sudden you get 96 and like basically he reinvigorated like the horror genre.
And the slasher. Well, and Kevin Williamson's script was... there's this really great documentary called Going to Pieces, The Rise and Fall of the Slasher Film.
Right.
And it
where would you watch that?
It originally aired on, I think, Stars.
Okay.
So I think like
search through the streamers, you might be able to find it.
I have a hard copy of it because again, I'm that asshole.
Yeah.
But I think it would be streaming if you had like a Stars on Demand kind of thing. I think that's currently probably the only place you'd find it, but the DVD does exist. You could probably get it at your library if nothing else.
Right.
I'm a big fan of getting DVDs from the library. But it documents like the origin of the slasher genre. It goes through the Grand Guignol theater roots, this French theater of horror back in the 1890s, through 1960s where you had like Psycho and Peeping Tom,
right,
through the 80s. And there was this saturation in the market, and then a drop-off, where the genre basically died. And you talk to a lot of people about horror in general in the 90s, and it's mostly not that favorable.
No, you're right. Horror was not in right then.
It was, and horror is almost always in, and yet in the 90s, and there was some notable movies happening, but there was this kind of like little blank spell where there wasn't a lot happening, and then you had Scream.
And Scream reinvigorated it. And then we had, like, I remember the 2000, like, there's tons of horror.
Tons of horror. Well, and Blair Witch Project, you had that in 99.
That found footage type thing.
And that ignited the found footage, which you did have the sort of shift to the Blair Witch, the Paranormal Activity. These found footage movies dominated a lot of the 2000s. But... you had Scream, you had Urban Legends. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
I Know What You Did Last Summer. I just watched that not that long ago again. I don't know why. It was just, it's something about it. I was like, I watched I Know What You Did Last Summer, and it blew my mind, like taking me back in time to the 2000 era.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this seems like not that long ago. And then you had like the clothing they wore and stuff. Yep. And then you look at like how young all the actors are, but you're like, it seems like not that long ago, but it's like, wow, that's a while ago now.
It was a while back. I mean, Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Dude, I still wish they would like bring back Buffy. Like do a new version of it somehow. Because I just saw her on this show. It's on Paramount Plus. It's called Wolfpack.
It's like the werewolf one, right? I haven't watched it.
I love it. I love it. It's so good. It's so good.
I love her, so I'm willing to go there.
Well, she's great in it. I love her. And then you see her and you're like, oh, she could totally do Buffy again right now, like an adult version.
I would watch
like some like new version of it, like because you see how good she still looks, so great, and she's still on point, and like, and in this Wolfpack show, she's kind of she's playing a cop, so she's like, very she's still very like capable of playing a physical character.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, which you kind of need with Buffy, right? Like. But it's like, she's older, but she's still capable of pulling off physical. So I'm like, they need to bring back Buffy.
Well, and her is like a mentor to younger Slayers.
Like a new nowadays Buffy, like where they're all like grown up and shit.
Gosh, well, and at Emerald City, they did a Buffy panel.
It would make so much money.
Because they had James Marsters, who played Spike, and they had Charisma Carpenter, who played Cordelia, and Christina Sutherland, who played Joyce, the mom, but like they all spoke so positively about like the actors, working with each other.
Right.
I feel like most of the actors involved would probably be game to.
I bet they kind of would. I know she was over it back then. But now enough time's maybe passed.
Well, if Joss Whedon isn't involved, that might help.
Well, he probably couldn't be, right? I mean,
he shouldn't be. Let's face it.
Like, I mean, the guy was a genius, but like, whatever. I think there's too much bad blood with like that Charisma Carpenter.
Well, and he did things that.
That's what I'm saying. Because wasn't that why he was off the what was it?
There was
Justice League or
and there was an HBO show he was.
I'm way more into
to,
the. Oh yeah.
That because of there was a lot of accusations and things that finally came out, and I don't know if he resigned as showrunner or if he was ousted or if it was one of those like, if you don't resign, we're going to oust you.
I mean, the guy did a great service with that show, a great artist, but whatever. I mean, he's probably, those things probably happened, and he probably, it's kind
of like Louis C.K. I really liked Louis C.K.
Still love him, but it's a weird thing.
Then he did some things, and then rather than like actually apologizing, he kind of dug his heels in, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, it is kind of similar to Louis C.K. in a sense, isn't
it? Both revered, both looked at as being like comic, or Louis C.K.
I've heard Louis C.K. put out like new comedy specials, and he's still insanely good though.
I'm sure.
Which is like weird, but no, I was gonna say like so I know Joss Whedon did like the Justice League. He came in because the other guys had some kind of family tragedy.
I think his daughter died by suicide.
So he finished it, but the problem was like he just didn't do that good a job. And then if you see the Zack Snyder,
he changed a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
So then now they have like the Zack Snyder cut, and it's like way better. I'm like a huge fan of those DC.
I liked
movies.
the Snyder cut. Yeah.
The Snyder cut is dope, and then like they have this other cut of, because I know the DCs get hated on. Because I'm a huge Batman fan, but the Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice, like if you watch the extended cut on HBO and you watch the Snyder cut of Justice League, they're fucking great.
Yeah.
I
really liked the newer Suicide Squad better than I liked the first one.
I actually never saw either though.
The original.
It's weird, they made both of them with like almost the same name.
They did
and same cast almost, right?
I feel like too this is kind of DC's problem is that they keep trying to find their voice.
They screw up and then they don't, and then they try again. And
like, say what you will about Marvel, they have doubled down in their continuity.
Right.
They have created a universe, and
huge universe.
There some, it's inconsistent, but their universe doesn't change.
Some of them are misses, but it's all connected, and it all makes sense.
DC at this point,
they keep like redoing things. Sorry, we messed it up.
And so it's like we tried the Suicide Squad. People didn't like it. We did it again.
Yeah.
It gets. If you're looking for one connected universe, DC is not the place to be.
I know.
And we do Robert Pattinson as Batman, but also,
Well, that's like a separate universe, and I'm on board.
I watched it.
That's my favorite movie.
I think
so they're gonna do a trilogy.
Oh, are they?
But it's not connected at all to any of the other DC. The one thing I'm super stoked about is the Flash movie, though.
Yes.
Because Michael Keaton Batman is in it, and I'm obsessed.
Mostly the Michael Keaton, because Ezra Miller has
some issues too now. Yeah. So you see that commercial during the Super Bowl, and like it's like Michael Keaton comes out, and he's like, "Yeah,
I'm here for Michael Keaton. I love Michael Keaton.
I'm Batman."
I love the Spider-Man movies, the new ones, and I loved Michael Keaton in.
Oh, he was great.
He was so good.
He's like an OG, and like you could not like. Speaking of like all these like issues with certain actors, and like what you can't find one knock against that guy.
No,
he's like as solid as they come.
Is it Birdman? He did a couple years ago.
Yeah.
My God, that movie was weird, but he was so good.
So on point.
Like he just seems like a lovely human.
I'm such a nerd that I'm still sad that there was never a third Tim Burton Batman movie with him, and they gave it to Joel Schumacher.
If those movies had been made now, I feel like the third might have happened.
Oh, it would have happened, because the problem was like McDonald's got pissed because or people got pissed at McDonald's for supporting a movie where like Danny DeVito is creepy and scary. Like,
I'm sorry, have you met Danny DeVito?
Yeah, well, and it's like so the second movie was too scary for kids or whatever, but it's like I watched it as a kid. I had the fucking Trapper Keeper.
What does that even mean?
It was fine. It was
scary
fine
for kids.
We
just talked about this.
Good fucking movie. Like it's better to put out a good movie. And then they hired Joel Schumacher, and Michael Keaton's like, okay, so you're gonna make Batman not dark, and he's like, it's kind of the whole point. And he's like, so I'm out. So then they got Val Kilmer, which that was an okay movie.
It's fine.
Yeah, but then, I mean, luckily that tanked the whole franchise when you had the fourth one with Arnold Schwarzenegger and
God,
Uma Thurman, which the casting was great.
Great actors.
But it was a terrible movie.
The movie was
horrible. But it's sort of fun.
Silverstone? That was her as Batgirl, right? Yeah.
It's kind of fun to go watch that one, though, sometimes for a cheesy factor. And, like, just the casting was fun.
Batman and Robin, right?
Yeah.
And with, because that was George Clooney and, what's his butt?
Because even Val Kilmer knew, like, I'm not doing another one of these. Because he was too good at that time, too. But then, luckily, that tanked it so bad that we got the Christian Bale ones. Because, like...
And I did enjoy the Christian Bale ones. I think by the time... when I watched the Robert Pattinson one... and it's funny because I
gotta realize I'm just a Batman nerd. Yeah.
And to be fair, like, I've always been, like, fine with Batman.
Yeah.
But I've never been quite...
I mean, look at this shit.
Okay, well, that's fair.
This is...
I'm Batman.
OG Michael Keaton Batman, and check it out. Look,
this is little.
Like,
it's
Michael Keaton.
That's cute.
Doesn't it look just like him too?
That is pretty.
So
legit.
It's Bruce Wayne. You can take the whole bat suit off of him. Oh. So this was like the one toy I wanted when I was an adult that I had as a kid. I'm like, I gotta get that. So I
need
bought
this.
It. You know, and I got the Catwoman there too. But this is such a dope.
No, that is cool.
I mean, look at that guy.
It's one. I appreciate awesome. A well-made like action figure too.
Oh, so do I. Cool. Yeah, that was like the old like.
This little cute armor comes.
Yeah, isn't that dope?
That's so fun.
Yeah, Kenner, like they used to kill it. They did all the. If you're like a toy nerd, like I actually probably will have like a toy episode with my friend Jonathan, who's kind of a toy nerd. Like, Kenner back in the day was like on point. Like I think they did the Star Wars toys, and then they did like
the Star Wars toys were good.
They did like they did the what was it? Kevin Costner Robin Hood.
Yeah.
They did the Michael Keaton Batman, and then they did famously the Jurassic Park toy line, which is huge. And I don't know what happened to that toy company, but they were like the OG back in the day.
Well, I mean, I think you do have that, like, because Funko, like, kind of.
Funkos are awesome.
But I love Funkos, but they sort of took over, I think, a lot of the...
Yeah.
Because you had, I mean, like, my brother, you know, he collected baseball cards. I had comics when I was a kid. I have a stack of comics in a storage locker in my condo basement.
Yeah.
That nobody wants these comics. Like... You
That's
know,
so weird. Like they're not worth anything.
They're not. I mean, it's my brother. It's funny. My folks moved like last year, and we were cleaning out the house. I have boxes and boxes of baseball cards that my brother was like, "If you want to sell these on eBay, go nuts." So I have all these baseball cards,
but none of them are selling.
Some of them are. I know not as much about baseball cards as I do other things, but like. There was a whole period of time in the 80s and 90s where, like, the action figures and the baseball cards and the collectibles and the comic books, and people care less now.
All right, everybody, it is time to take a short break for our sponsors. The Nicky Free Podcast is now brought to you by Manscaped. They are the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. So join over 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. So it is 20% off and free shipping worldwide with the code NickyFit at manscaped.com. So the thing about it is, like, when you're, you know, you're trying to shave your balls, you got like a date or something, you know, you don't know where things are going to go, but you don't want to be like showing up all messy down there. You want to show up all clean. You want to be looking good down there. You know what I'm saying? So like, we've all done that. You get a shaver out, you go to shave yourself, and what happens every time? You cut your balls, man. And it's no good when you cut your balls. You know, you start bleeding all over your ball sack. You got blood going everywhere. You get it cleaned up. You go on the date. And, like, obviously, you know, you're a high-performance male. So, like, things are going good for you in the date. You know, stuff starts going well. And next thing you know, like, one thing leads to another. But then the thing is, you whip it out. And, like, there's a big thing. Like, you know, your balls are all cut up. And it's, like, all sore down there. And it's, like, such a turnoff, you know. So it's, like... You don't want that to happen to you, you know? Like, you don't want a big open wound on your ball sack when you're out on a date. Like, that's just no way to be. So So guys, it's time to take care of yourself. All right, look at this. Look at this product. It's awesome. Thank you, Manscaped. This stuff is so great. You know, they also threw in this beard hedger, which is just a great beard trimmer. We'll talk about that another time. But this is the performance package. So yeah, you know, guys, go online, go to manscaped.com. If you want 20% off, use code NickyFit. You will get 20% off and free shipping worldwide. So check out the performance package. It's awesome. And thank you guys so much. Use code NickyFit, save 20%. You're really helping out the podcast. And I want to say that I was already using Manscaped before they started sponsoring the podcast. I think they're a great product. So thank you guys for picking this stuff up. Use code NickyFit, save 20% and free shipping. You're really helping me out. You're helping out the podcast. And thank you to Manscaped. And thank you guys. Go out there. Let's get cleaned up. Let's not go out there all messy and stuff. We got to look good. All right, guys. Thank you. True.
It's like antiques, too. People don't give a fuck about antiques. No.
There's still a huge, toy collectors out there, but it's like newer
specific
stuff.
Too. Like, I sold a G.I. Joe figurine on eBay that had belonged to my brother for like $400.
Holy shit. Yeah.
But it was like sealed in its little...
Certain things, if you still have like the original one in the package, like you will get crazy money.
But I've got some really cute, like I have a little Jason Voorhees Funko.
I love horror action figures are dope.
I love horror action. I have a Joe Bob and Darcy because I'm a big Last Drive-In fan. And I loved Monster Vision way back in the day.
Right.
But like it's different.
Well, the 80s toys were just dope. Like the Ghostbusters, and like we had so many cool action figures. Like
there's a
Turtles, Transformers,
Teenage Mutant Ninja
Turtles.
Yeah. There's a subscription service called Dino Dracula. And it's a dude who was, 80s and 90s stuff.
Yeah.
And it's, those like boxes you can get. His is all stuff from the 80s and 90s.
Right.
So like trading cards and pogs and action figures and...
People make these dope Instagrams like that where they just like celebrate all the stuff from like the past.
It's fun.
It's
It's so much fun.
It's kind of like I heard they're bringing back some of the blockbusters now. I'm like, that's so cool.
I just saw that. I love going...
I wonder how they compete or how they do it now. Like you'd have to like I know the one that was like the last blockbuster.
In like Alaska or wherever.
Yeah, they would like sell like you could like stay there like as an Airbnb and like
that's cool.
Hang out, watch whatever movies you want.
I'd stay in a Blockbuster overnight. That
so you have to like there's different gimmick. Yeah, that would be a blast. And you have all those like movies and stuff. Like,
yes.
But yeah, I know. So I know they're starting to open a few new Blockbuster locations
in like California, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw an article the other day about that.
It's kind of cool. It's like nostalgia.
Because nostalgia's so strong. Well, but also like because I love Scarecrow Video.
Yeah.
In Seattle.
Oh, I would love that if there's any kind of like vinyl shops or like this. If it's you said it's a video store, like I think that'd be dope.
They're one of Scarecrow Video, and their whole thing is that they converted to nonprofit a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. So they have they do have contemporary stuff, but their whole thing has always been like, you're more obscure, you're harder to find, you're foreign, you're stuff.
That's where you gotta go. Like even with these new blockbusters, I think that's where they gotta go. Stuff you really can't get on a streaming service.
Well, and they have all these things you can't get streaming. They'll rent out like a VCR because they have VHS tapes.
If you're gonna be a Blockbuster nowadays, you better have VCRs and DVD players ready to because nobody has those anymore.
I mean, I do.
Well, you do, but that's your thing.
I still have a VHS because
you have all these horror movies on VHS.
I have horror movies on VHS. That being said, it's so funny. Like I have all these DVDs, but if I can avoid like the effort of apparently just getting up and walking and taking one out and putting it in the player,
you still end up watching a lot of streaming.
I do, or because I still subscribe. I still have cable.
Really?
Because when I was a kid, I loved, especially around October, like finding things on TV. Mm-hmm. And no matter how many times I've seen it.
It's fun when they have like those like horror movie marathons and like
AMC still does their whole like.
So it's kind of like somebody else programming for you. So like you're not deciding it. Just like it happens. So then you'll find something that maybe you wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what makes it fun, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I also, like, I don't mind commercials. When commercials happen, I, like, get up and start to unload my dishwasher, or I go change the laundry out.
Yeah, like, we used to always have the news on here in the morning. Like, Steve would always have it on. You know? And it's like, I'm like, damn, that's, I think it's like, I can't remember what commercial it was. It was like those fruits and veggies in pill form. Like, balance of nature. And I'm like...
Just eat fruits and
I'm like, damn, balance of nature must be paying you motherfuckers a lot of money, because all I hear is, like, balance of nature. It's so funny, you can, like, see where all the money's coming from. It's like, damn, you hear that balance of nature one every morning.
Like,
So weird. I mean, it sounds like a good idea, you know, get your fruits and veggies covered, but... Or, like you said, just eat fruits and veggies.
Just eat fruits and veggies, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Hulu, you know, they do the same couple commercials over and over. And every commercial break, it's the same commercial. And at some point, you're like,
it
y'all,
gets annoying. Yeah.
I will not use this product purely because I've had to listen to this commercial a dozen times.
Yeah, I'm like so sick of your commercial now, just out of spite. I refuse. Gonna ever buy that product.
Never, ever.
Even if I need it.
No, doesn't matter. If it's toilet paper, I'm like, nope, I'm going to find another way.
We're going with another brand. You just overdid it.
You have killed it.
It's weird how advertising does work, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, when I needed a website, the first thing I did was Squarespace, just because, like, that's what you hear about.
That's what you hear about.
Squarespace. And it's like, I had a friend that works for, like, GoDaddy, which is, like, another website service. And it's like, he's like, so what was it? Why didn't... I'm like, because I saw him, I'm like, shit, I'd never even thought of it. I should have used GoDaddy, like, because I know he works there. And he's like, no, it's cool. He's like, but what was it? I'm like, I don't know. It's just, that's the one that comes to mind is Squarespace.
It's those little, it's... You
like,
don't even
think
realize
of, like, soda, what do you think of? Like, Pepsi or Coke?
Coke.
Yeah, Coke. Yeah. See? Coke. And I think Coke's better, too, but...
Same.
It's weird. It's like, those are the ones you're going to think of first. You're not going to think of, like, RC Cola. And so it's just weird. So it kind of, advertising does work.
The amount of, like, catchphrases I know from commercials that I'll still... Without even realizing it, I'll just bust out.
Yeah.
Some that are so ancient at this point, I'll make a reference... in a classroom, like a drama class.
And they have no idea what you're talking about.
And the kids look at me like...
What? They're like, what is this from? You're like,
listen,
some ancient history.
At one point, how many licks it took to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop, this was, like, highly debated. So you need to appreciate where I'm coming from.
I remember that commercial, yeah.
Right? Yeah. The 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it's an owl.
The owl, yes. Yeah. And then he bites it, and you're like, that's not how that works.
That doesn't work that. Yeah, he cheated.
He cheated. Like, that was our childhood.
He stole their Tootsie Pop, too.
He stole the Tootsie Pop.
This is bullshit.
The Klondike bar. Do you remember the Klondike bar?
What would you do?
What would you do for
a Klondike bar?
I in one of my film classes, I have that Klondike bar commercial, and I give it to the kids.
It shows you the power of music. Right. To remember. So, like, no wonder people used to think of, like, jingles to remember things.
Oh, yeah. Because it's there. It's there forever.
Or that's how they would tell stories.
Easy breezy, like, beautiful cover girl.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even, like, in the past, like, like, if you read, like, Tolkien's books and stuff, they're always singing songs. It's like...
To music.
Of course people used to sing, because it's like, that's how they would remember stories.
And the ballads that were, like, murder ballads are a big thing in the 1800s. Yeah. They're telling the stories of something that happened.
Like a horror song, almost.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I love murder ballads.
Yeah. What is that? What are those like?
So... Murder ballads were, and it's funny because you have some contemporary artists who have kind of globbed onto it to do more contemporary murder ballads, but it's telling the story of like a murder or a crime or a killer.
Right.
And it really is storytelling through song, but it's very specific storytelling. It was very popular.
It was a genre.
In the 1800s, it was a really big thing.
It makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's. I think you see it with some pop music though, where references to killers work their way into some pop songs or references to things.
Oh, totally. It's funny because there's like we'll have like rugby dudes come in the bar, and they sing these like crazy stories, and like some of them are horrible. Like it's like. One was like about a necrophiliac and all this stuff, and they're just like these like Irish jigs they're singing. It's like, but they do make you laugh. Like when you hear it, it's like, I know that's disgusting, but that was fucking funny.
But also,
like Just like the way, I don't know, but they're like ancient.
Yeah.
You got to think those have been around for years and years, and I'm sure people just did them to like same reason you do storytelling, like make light of the situation. Like say you're going to battle, like you're in the, like I'm sure people did that all the time, like in battle. Like sing songs to kind of ease the tension, similar to like what you said about horror movies. They kind of ease that anxiety. So if you have like a horror song, it's like easier. Like a song about a witch, I'm sure there was tons of those.
Oh yeah,
yeah, like tales
and magic and
the creatures and dragons and it's just like we're just like naturally storytellers. Human beings are
like Beowulf. It's this epic poem
That's
about
a
a
poem.
monster. You know, like.
It's a great poem, too.
Yeah.
It's been turned into great movies, great books, great, like, it's like, that's a cool one.
Yeah. But it's that, again, it all comes back to storytelling. We've always used storytelling as a way to share history, it brings you together. It's again, that campfire, sitting around and sharing experiences and trying to scare.
Did you guys have any, do you have any memorable scary stories that you remember from like childhood sitting around campfires? Like
the hook is always a big.
I remember the hook one. We always had the hook one. People take the flashlight and put it under the face How's that story go? The hook. Do you remember that one?
The Lover's Lane, because that's when Lover's Lane was.
It was always a couple. So even before slashers, it was always like young couples hooking up.
Yeah.
And that's when the danger.
So there's a morality tale to them too, like fairy tales. There was morality tales in all of those.
Yeah, like even like Little Red Riding Hood and all that. Like,
don't go into the woods and talk to strange people.
Right. It was like a tale of like warning, like
and sexuality very much.
So, and then that even went into slashers because every time before someone gets killed, they hook up.
Well, it's what's really interesting with slashers specifically is you had in the early 80s, you had the white flight to suburbia, you had the body culture, and you had these cautionary tales of young people and what happens if you do drugs, if you drink, if you have sex. Ronald Reagan in the White House.
Right.
All of that contributing to this idea of a proper way to behave and being punished for
and
vices.
The punishment is you're gonna die.
Punishment is you're gonna die. You're gonna get put in a sleeping bag and like hit against a tree, or you're gonna get killed in a shower or whatever.
Terrifying.
But no, the hook one.
Yep, I remember it. Kind of.
Yeah, the couple in Lover's Lane and they hear a noise.
A scratching at the. Yeah.
Well, they hear a noise, so he leaves. Because am I mixing up my story? Because
he goes out to check it out.
There's the class ring that's scratching on the top of the car. Is that the same as? No, I think I'm mixing up my two stories.
There's a lot of different versions of it. I know that.
Because I think they're hearing the noise, so they drive off and they find the hook on the doorknob.
They actually get away. You're right in some of the stories, and then they see the hook.
They see the hook, but then I'm remembering one where they're hearing there's like the news story comes on, and they're hearing a sound.
Oh, about a hook man.
And he goes out, and she keeps hearing this like scratch, 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 and she gets out of the car.
He's like up in the tree.
And it's his class ring, because class rings used to be a thing.
Yeah.
Not really a thing anymore, but the class ring scraping on the top of the car.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
He's dead, yeah.
Because he's dead.
So there's definitely different versions where like, even Red Riding Hood, I know there was like a lot of different, like there was where like, there's one where like the wolf actually like feeds the grandma to the daughter. It says it's like meat, and then
Titus Andronicus too. You've got those.
Yeah, there's so many different versions, and then I know they added like the huntsman so that it had a happy ending because he cut the wolf open and grandma comes out and she's still alive, and like, but I think the older versions did not all end very happy.
Well, most of the Grimm's fairy tales were, I mean, again, pardon the horrible pun, but like grim.
Very grim.
The stepsisters cutting off their toes to fit into the shoe.
Oh, that's horrible. Like Cinderella.
Yeah, in Cinderella, they were even just Hans Christian Andersen, the original Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
She turns to sea foam and dies.
Well, OG, like Peter Pan, remember that shit? He was like killing the kids when they got too old, right?
To be fair, Peter Pan was never intended to be a hero.
No, he was like, he couldn't grow up.
He couldn't grow up.
And he would, like, once the kids got too old, he'd kill them.
Or
like,
they became pirates.
Or they switched over and became
Because there's always been a, like, wonder of, like, was Captain Hook at one point possibly a lost boy?
You gotta think, Peter Pan is not a good... if you think about life...
He's horrible.
Yeah, it's like basically wanting to stay immature and not grow and learn.
Forever.
From your mistakes forever. Like wanting to stay naive. And the thing about wanting to stay innocent and naive actually turns you into a monster.
Yeah.
Because you're ignoring like realities, like, and you're pretending things don't exist.
You're making a choice to be blind to it.
Right.
And then to actively work against it.
It's kind of like if you're doing something that hurts somebody else and you're unaware of it, that's like one thing. And then if you become aware of it and you keep choosing to do it, so that's kind of the idea of it, right? It's like, so like you make a mistake and someone's like, hey, the way you've been treating me, I don't like it. And you're like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I had no idea I was making you feel that way.
And I'm going to learn and grow.
I'm going to learn and grow from it, and I won't do that behavior anymore. Or you ignore it and pretend it didn't happen. And now you're making a conscious decision to be an asshole. So like there's those, so I mean, that's kind of how I see Peter Pan. It's like, it seems cool to like want to never grow up.
It's fun to think about.
I mean, I got these fucking toys here, and I like. One thing I definitely like is keeping the like childlike passion for things you love.
Yeah.
But like the idea of like never learning and never growing, I don't like that because there's something evil about it.
Well, it's at some point it's a choice. You're making a deliberate choice, and I mean, I think.
Well, it's a choice to be ignorant. Or to like realities and pretend you don't know what's going on.
And it's the Peter Pan specifically, again, was never intended to be a hero, but he got Disneyfied. And Disney was
I love the movie. I mean, shit, yeah.
But
I love the one of my favorite movies as a kid was Hook.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love Hook.
Remember Hook with Robin Williams? God, and that was cool because like that one had this sense of like where you lose your childhood wonderment and passion, and then he was able to find it again. Because remember, they're like, "Oh no, Peter grew up," and like
and didn't remember anything.
He didn't remember anything, and he got kind of like bitter and lame, and then like he had to remember it, and then it kind of helped his relationship with his kids, who he was ignoring, and there was a good message in that movie of like learning that like what matters again. Because I think we do lose that as we get older sometimes, like. I had that dude Steve Miggs in here, the radio guy, and he didn't. He did, his dream was pro wrestling. He didn't do it until he was like in his 40s, and it's like he said he would get flack sometimes from people. It's like you're supposed to just like give up on your dreams after a certain age, and like just then they'll call it like a midlife crisis, and it's like I don't know. There's something about still being excited by simple things that is childlike that I really respect in people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the same way, like you could be like, oh, horror movies are for kids. I liked that when I was a kid. I'm an adult now. I'm over it. Or you could still like have this love and passion for this thing, and somebody might call that childish, but it's like, fuck them,
You like what you like, and if it's not damaging anyone and it's not
right, you're not hurting anybody else,
or damaging your ability to like be an actual human being, like
right,
who cares what I'm watching when I'm not
well,
and it's I don't know, horror specifically I've always had a lot of flack about liking.
I bet you have, especially when you get older, right? Like, if you're a kid and you're into it, I could see people, oh, that's cool, but, like, you're still into that?
Well, as a girl, too, though, when I was little, I was told, why do you, those aren't
even
the kind of movies.
They said you like black stuff, and so, like, you got skulls on right now. It's a dope dress you got, like.
Thank you.
And, you're into that stuff, like, but I suppose as a girl, like, you're not supposed to like that kind of stuff.
It's funny, because, like, I got more comfortable being open about, like, I watched horror a ton when I was a kid. My mom liked it. I remember I was 12 or 13. My birthday party was a sleepover, and like I rented a bunch of movies and had girls over, and we watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We watched Wes Craven's New Nightmare. We watched all these horror People Under the Stairs. We watched that, and it wasn't that I ever hit it, but I hit a point. where you got enough shame for it. I was not embarrassed, but I was reluctant to share it. And it was not until my 20s I started to feel more comfortable kind of embracing that as, no, I think there is value in horror films. There's you look at culture, you look at history and how it's reflected. Also, I just like the movies, so who cares? But it can be hard. There's a lot of, well, you even look at, with awards. You have these brilliant films.
They'll never get recognition because they're in the horror genre.
Or if they do, suddenly they're a thriller. Silence of the Lambs is a great example. It's a thriller.
Fucking love that movie.
It's a great movie. It's a horror film.
Yeah.
Dude is making a lady suit. He's skinning people and making a lady suit. Other dude is eating people. It's a motherfucking horror film.
I always wonder how that Thomas Harris thought of that shit. I suppose, you take some of it from, Ed Gein. So, the real...
He took Ed Gein, which also, both Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre were inspired by it.
Ed Gein made a lot of people a lot of money.
What's funny, though, is he's, barely a serial killer.
Well, he was just digging up old ladies.
Yeah, he mostly was necrophiliac.
Yeah,
he mostly was dealing with dead bodies, and then he ran out of dead bodies, so he was like, oh, I guess I need some parts.
The weird thing is he was, just digging up parts and, making lamps and shit. Yeah. And had, bowls full of body parts. A nipple belt. Dude, that... I remember... So, our we had a teacher who was... I think it was... literature, or I can't remember, but she had us she was really into the Psycho movie, and you could tell it was a passion of hers, but it definitely made me interested. So we read this book about Ed Gein, it's that's how I know all this stuff, and it's one of the creepiest, definitely one of the weirdest dudes ever. You think how does a person get like that?
Mommy issues.
Yeah, some severe mommy issues, and that's what the whole thing of Psycho is. The mom's in the basement, and that movie was fucking great.
Oh, yeah.
How the fuck? You, see him in the house, talking to her, and it just the way it was filmed and everything, that movie holds up today.
Well, and again, it's the fake out again, too. You know, you
don't know it's coming till the chair turns around, and it's my God, that's blowing my mind.
And you spend the first third of the movie following who you think is the female heroine. Yeah. And then she gets killed in the shower.
It's another one of those where it's rare, but they'll do that sometimes where they kill. What was
that? That was one of the first times it was done.
Well, and that's Freddy Krueger, the OG one. You don't think that you think that girl's the main character. And then it ends up being the other girl that ends up being the main character. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They definitely took some from Psycho in that, I feel like. Yeah.
And Wes Craven then with Drew Barrymore. It's you
same
think
thing. She's basically kind of seems like the main character.
Because she's also the biggest name.
She was the
biggest name in that movie at that time.
Yeah, 100%. You don't think she's going to die, which is perfect. Yeah. I mean, perfect creatively. I always like a good twist where you really don't see it coming.
And that first, in the original Scream, say what you will about the movie. If you're a slasher fan, if you're not, if you like the original Scream or you don't, that scene, that first scene is iconic. It is brilliantly filmed. It is tense. It is terrifying.
Scared the shit out of me as a kid.
When her parents come home.
I remember my parents rented it, and I was still young enough where I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this. It might be, and then and I think it actually kind of helped because then after that I could watch a lot of horror. Because when I was a kid, we would literally go to the video store, and I would be scared of the horror section, which is kind of funny if you think about it. I'd be like, I don't even
some
just
of those covers were pretty.
Yeah, even just walking through and seeing the covers, my eyes would be like, whoa. And then but it's kind of similar to the scary stories that tell in the dark. You sort of were drawn to it at the same time. It's weird. You're scared, but you want to see it. Yeah.
There would be, because back, I think it was Hollywood Video was the big video store in Redmond's at the time.
Yeah.
And we'd go to Hollywood Video, and I would look through. And I didn't even think I read descriptions half the time. It was really just what the poster on the movie case looked like. Yeah. I remember that was my very first taste of Dario Argento, who is an Italian film director. Did a lot of giallo films.
Okay.
But his opera was, I think, the first film of his I saw. And I liked it because the cover is a woman, and I was obsessed with Phantom of the Opera at the time. So I saw opera, I was like, ooh. And it was a killer who, when he killed, he wanted the female character to watch. So he'd tape like pins under her eyes so she couldn't close her eyes.
Yikes.
So she'd have to watch what was happening.
That's terrifying.
It's terrifying, right? And because he wanted her to see.
Eesh.
And I remember that being on, like I'd rented that and it was on. I'm sitting in my living room, my dad walking through and being like, is this really what you want to watch?
Yeah, no shit. What did he say? What did your dad think of that? What does he think of your horror obsession?
His favorite thing to say, although at this point,
well, now he knows it's just
now
you.
Now it's adorable because I get emails from him. My dad is like the cutest human on the planet. My parents are the most delightful people ever. My dad will email me things. I'll open an email and it'll be an article about some kind of like vicious serial killing, and my dad will be like, I saw this and thought you would like it. Or, you know, a list of like the top scariest movies. Did you see this? Have you seen these?
It's like only you would get something like that from your dad, right? Like,
it's so cute. But when I was younger, he would say, at some point, we took a left turn with you.
like make a little joke like that, yeah.
Yeah, that just he's like, I don't know how this happened. I'm like, you married Mom. You don't know how this happened?
Yeah, was your mom pretty fun too?
My mom is like
Does she like horror stuff?
That's how I got into horror initially. Now I have surpassed her desire of horror, but like when I was a kid, it was the movies on Saturday and Sundays, the like 2 p.m. mostly creature features, piranhas and slugs and
well, even the old like Twilight Zone shit is fucking cool. Like.
So she watched that. My brother and I'd watch that with her.
Yeah,
and they were edited for TV.
There was a weird one on the other day. I just happened to watch it because it was on the TV, and like it was like this where like the mannequins come to life, but they only get so like it's in a department store, and like the one lady like goes up to the top floor and the other lady's like pissed at her, and it's like because she's overstayed her time getting to live as a human, and so she doesn't understand why this lady's mad. Well, she forgot that she's actually a mannequin, and they only get 1 month a year where they get to go live as humans, so the other mannequins are pissed.
That sounds cool. What was that?
The Twilight Zone. Yeah.
It was the Twilight Zone.
I'll have to find that episode. It was fun. I was like, and then she's like, when it all hits her, like, oh, I'm so sorry, I just forgot. And then she goes back to being a mannequin, and the next one gets to have their time as a human. But I'm like, that's weird. There was some they did so much with so little back then. You know what I mean? Like, just like they would create these really compelling stories, but they didn't have a lot of special effects, and they didn't, like.
And a weekly series, you've got to just keep cranking it out. You got
to think of something every week. Yeah, that's true.
Well, I really liked. I used to watch Alfred Hitchcock Presents. That was a big one for me, and some of those were really like chilling. Yeah,
like still to this day, if you watched it, it'd be horrifying. Even like with today's standards, right? Like,
yeah, but simple.
Yeah,
very, very simple, and I think that's kind of coming back. We talked about this with Ryan Murphy at the very beginning.
Right, the simplicity thing.
Simple can be some of the best stories I've ever seen have been very simple stories.
Yep.
You don't need to have all this flash and all of these elements if your story is good.
It's harder now to get away with that because everything is so like big Hollywood. Like everything has to be a blockbuster now.
Yeah. And a slow burn is a harder sell.
Yeah, there's a thing where it was like, I think it was Matt Damon talking about this, how it's kind of a shame that like, so studios used to take more chances and let more art films get made and things because it could bomb in the box office and then they could make up the money in DVD sales afterwards.
Yeah.
So they would greenlight more like passion projects and like and he said it was great because then actors would get better chops because like you didn't always have to take like the big blockbuster. You could go do a passion project that you just really like the script
and try
and play. Learn your acting skill and like you said, like you do some like art piece movies that were a little, like some of them were probably a little risky or like and now. It has to make a certain amount of money at the box office because they can't rely on DVD sales anymore. So it's kind of like, it's just new. I don't want to say it's bad, but it's definitely different.
Well, especially post-pandemic, too. It's a really different landscape.
Yeah, big time.
Because less people are going to the movie theaters.
Yep, even still, probably.
Even still. But what's
like, what are the biggest ones? Probably like the new Avatar, Top Gun. Those were able to...
Top Gun was huge.
Pulled a lot of people in the theater.
But what's interesting is that movies that are still consistently making money, and part of it is because they're very cheap to produce, horror films.
Really?
It is why horror films will always...
So, like, Marvel movies make a ton of money, but they cost a ton of money.
You make a good... I mean, even the most recent Scream, that didn't... I mean, it
didn't cost shit compared to a Marvel movie.
Compared to a Marvel... Like, it would have been a higher budget, because at this point, Scream... But it was still fairly tame comparatively, and you can make these much lower budget,
well, even like the newer Halloweens probably were pretty cheap compared to like superhero movies, and they probably made tons of money.
The second Terrifier, Terrifier 2
that made him a lot of money.
It made him a lot of money, but it was like a GoFundMe style or Kickstarter that they did to do it. It was made for not a lot of money.
Passion project.
Yeah. But horror films will always bring in money.
So that's a positive about horror movies.
Yeah, and it always has been.
And they're, I always think it too, like I'll follow some of those things on Instagram, which are like, they'll have scenes from like old movies that show old special effects. And it's so fun to follow those accounts because like you get to see like all the different weird and creative ways they used to like before CGI. And it's like some of that stuff is almost creepier.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Because there's something about like real stuff. Like even, one of my favorites is American Werewolf in London. Oh, and that's like the craziest transformation scene.
Yes, to this day. It's brilliant.
It actually holds up to this day. Yeah, and
that movie's and it's funny.
That's a great movie.
It's a and the movie has held up.
Did you ever see like the second one?
Recently, I did.
It was pretty bad, but kind of fun.
It was
very
silly.
2000s.
Very 2000s.
Like, it had that dimension film type of... You remember a lot of those, like, movies from that time? Like, the CGI was pretty bad.
Oh, it was awful.
All of it was pretty awful, but it was kind of fun. But the original was, like, a classic movie. Yeah. Like, always will be. But there's something fun about watching the sequel.
Yeah.
And what's it called? Like...
Paris. It's American Werewolf in Paris.
Yeah. Kind of a fun flick.
It's very silly, but it's fun.
Yeah.
I watched it for the first time. I can't remember if I talked about this last time I was on the 100 Days of Horror that I do. We'll be going into year 10 this year, which will be 1,000 horror films I've never seen in the 100 days going up to Halloween. Yeah.
So you watch for 100 days.
100 days leading up to Halloween.
So that means you're watching thousands of movies.
Well, so this year with year 10 it'll be 1,000 movies this year.
So you're basically like a horror movie encyclopedia.
It's to some point. I'm hoping to actually compile all of it together and make a book because
you should.
It's so many films. But I watched American Werewolf in Paris for the first time for my 2022 100 Days of Horror.
Yeah.
And it's one I remember seeing the trailers for it in theaters in the 2000s, and I'd never seen it.
Same. I was like that too, and then I finally watched it.
And I was like,
it's kind of got hurt by being a 2000s movie. Because it had a very 2000s like aesthetic.
Yeah, and even just the way the
actor, yeah, like because that actor was probably in other movies around that time,
or in a television show that was popular.
Movies or some shit. Yeah.
But it
kind of fun.
It was silly. It was very, very silly.
Hold up to the first one. There's just no way. That's such a good movie.
One, it was very much. It's one where you're like, I wish rather than trying to attach yourself to the first one, you would just try to be your own thing.
Right, and it was just 100% trying to be like the first one. Like,
and capitalizing on the name and capitalizing on the franchise.
Nice twist, though, was like the girl he was in love with ended up being the wolf, right? That was different. I guess that was kind of a twist. I didn't really see it coming.
Yeah.
And they still had the thing where like the dead friend keeps coming
popping
to
up
him and showing up just like the old one.
And getting more gross.
That was some great in the original one, some great the
practical
prosthetics,
as he got more and more
he kept decomposing more and more.
That was so
it was pretty dope.
There's the Slaughtered Lamb. That was the pub.
That was a pub. Yeah, that'd be a dope name for a pub.
There was a pub in New York I used to love. I don't know if they're still open. I should look because I used to do like my birthdays there. Slaughtered Lamb. And they were inspired by like they had a giant werewolf and I loved that place.
You know, there's something about like if I had to pick a favorite like creature, it's werewolf. Like, you know, some people like vampires. Like, you know, I like vampire movies too. Some are great. Yeah. But for me, it's always werewolves.
Werewolves are cool.
They're just fucking cool.
Well, werewolves had kind of a renaissance for a while and then sort of fell away.
Now you got Wolfpack with fucking Buffy.
And now you got
Sarah
Wolfpack with Buffy.
It's great. You know, one of my favorites as a kid, which I don't know that it was a box office failure or not, but Wolf.
I was just going to say, well, Jack Nicholson.
I fucking loved that movie.
I think it...
Michelle Pfeiffer and Jack Nicholson. And like, it was so cool because like I still remember him like running. He's like running and he like jumps out of the thing and he grabs the fucking deer and he like grabs it and he's like... and like bites into it like he's a hunter, you know, like he's like a wolf. And like I also dug the thing where like at the beginning of the movie he's kind of like a middle-aged old man and then all of a sudden like his hair starts looking a little full, like they did it really subtly. He doesn't need his glasses now, he can hear, like they almost make him like start looking fitter and fitter. So it was kind of cool, like oh, so like the wolf makes you like vitality, it brings back and
brings that youth, brings that.
I also liked the twist with the other actor being a wolf too, but you didn't really know till the end.
You didn't know till right the was that 90s?
Yeah, that was
like
94.
90s? Yeah. Oh, that was like mid 90s.
Yeah. So I did really like that movie.
Yeah.
Still to this day, I don't know. I just love that flick. Yeah.
I haven't watched it in a while, but I'd be curious if it holds up.
I think it kind of does.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but yeah, I'd have to watch it again. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I just remember really liking it when I was younger.
I am excited about Renfield that's coming out soon.
Same. That looks dope.
I'll see anything with Nick Cage in
Both actors are great. Nicolas Cage is fucking hilarious.
And is that Nicholas Hoult?
Yeah. He's going to be good too.
Who's also just delightful.
Well, one of my favorite like newer shows on Hulu was that What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, I love What We Do in the Shadows.
It's so damn
It's like Gabby's favorite too.
Funny.
Yes.
Like
and the original movie is fantastic.
You know, I've never seen the OG movie, but
you need to see the OG movie.
All the characters in it are so good. Like I was gonna say that I love what's his name the best, the fucking one that's always drinking and fucking.
Oh, because you've got Laszlo, you've got
Laszlo.
Yeah.
How Laszlo talks, and then he becomes that other character of where he goes and he becomes that bartender. Remember, the town just loves him and shit.
Yes.
I forget his name when he's the bartender, but that shit's so funny. But then it's like, okay, I think he's my favorite, but then you got to remember the other ones are also good too.
I love Nadia.
Nadia is so funny, and her little doll of her.
The doll.
So fucking funny, and then even
Guillermo.
Colin.
I love Guillermo.
Oh, Guillermo's great, and the funny thing is how he's like a descendant of like Van Helsing, and all of a sudden like he's like this like not very intimidating guy, but then before long he just has this like. It just comes natural to him that he just can kill vampires like nothing.
The
and do like
so much.
Yeah, he does all these like fucking like martial art moves. And he's like, where did that come from?
Badass, yes.
He's a badass. That's a fucking good show. And then of course the energy vampire Colin.
Yes.
And when he becomes a kid and then he forgets growing up, I'm like, what a weird. So like that's like a energy vampire thing. I guess you die and then you're reborn as a kid again, and it happens every 100 years.
That tracks.
It sounds like makes sense to me.
I have some of those kids in my classrooms.
But think about the CGI that they used to make him a kid. That was crazy. Like he looked like a kid. It was funny.
That show's great. Well, and again, the original movie is fantastic.
I will watch it.
There was a spin-off too that is lesser known in America, but it was called Wellington Paranormal.
Yeah.
And it was a spin-off of two of the cop characters who pop up in the original movie. And then you have Rhys Darby, who plays the werewolves, not swearwolves, in the original movie. He pops up in Wellington Paranormal. Okay. So, like, the universe has actually gotten...
So it's bigger than I'd think.
Bigger
I've
than
only
you realize.
seen the Hulu... Yeah, I've literally only seen the Hulu
The
series.
original movie, because I think there's that one episode where they have all the vampires, like the vampire council or whatever.
Yeah.
And one of them is...
Oh, yeah, I love the vampire council or whatever.
One of them is one of the vampires from the... It's Taika Waititi from the original...
Yeah.
What We Do in the Shadows.
So they have, like, they bring back that.
There's
like,
lots of little, like, things that kind of... Yeah.
Who else do they have that's, like, famous that's in it? That's one...
Was it Mark Hamill did a...
Well, there's like, they have him on a screen. Remember? What was it in the...
was it... Because there was Blade.
It was
I remember.
Blade.
Yeah, it was Blade. It was Blade. Because Tilda Swinton pops in.
It's wild, yeah.
Like, no, that episode is still maybe one of my favorite, like, crossover television things that they made happen. Because out of nowhere, just all of these people popping up.
Guillermo. I love the relationship between Guillermo and his master. It's so funny.
Yeah.
They have such a weird relationship,
like pining for each other.
Yeah, kind of, in a sense, like, and like the one he won't admit that he actually likes Guillermo, like, it's just funny.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a great show. And I think the next season is out sometime
probably
this
coming
year.
out.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff coming out. There's the second season of Good Omens is also coming out.
Never seen it.
I like Neil Gaiman, or Gaiman, I don't know. I never know how to say his last name. And I liked the first season. I love David Tennant. I love Michael Sheen. Like,
yep.
It's a good time. It's a good time. So they're making a second
Didn't
season.
you say something like they're making a new version of Insidious or something?
They are making another Insidious movie.
Third one.
Yeah, and and at this point, so Patrick Wilson and
is he the Owl Man?
Patrick Wilson was he was the original dude.
Night Owl. Is he?
Oh, Night Owl? I don't know.
So the dude in Insidious was Night Owl in the fucking Watchmen. The Watchmen.
Oh, it's been a long.
So he's the dad that gets like overtaken.
He's the dad,
by
yeah, and he's in the Conjuring movies. He plays Ed Warren.
Yep, that guy.
Yeah.
Yep, he's great.
Patrick Wilson's fantastic. It was funny. Last night I was messaging Gabi because I was listening to some Broadway cast album and it didn't click, but Patrick Wilson was the lead guy. Right. And I was like, holy shit, this was, when I was a teenager, this was one of my favorite albums. And I didn't track Patrick Wilson.
Yeah, from a different time in your life. You just realized it.
Because he used to do a crap ton of Broadway.
That's probably why he's so good.
Yeah, and he's a theater dude.
Now, is that a thing where you can like really tell when actors have like theater?
Generally, yeah.
And like I always feel like they're great character actors, and like even like you said, a lot of horror movies. I feel like a lot of these like really good dudes,
actors.
They have a lot of theater actors because like
Robert Englund, yeah,
he was right.
Mm-hmm. What Doug Bradley, who was Pinhead in the original Hellraiser movies.
Okay, yeah.
Like there is a different attention to detail in actors who trained in the theater and came up in the theater.
Right.
That I think translates on screen in a very different way.
Yes.
And you see it, and you don't always realize that that's what makes them so compelling to watch.
It's because they're like really trained in this skill.
And
because it's a skill, right? I mean, you teach it. It's like acting kind of blows my mind. Actually, it'd be interesting to like do an acting class or like.
If you've never done one, if nothing else, it would be fun. Yeah.
One like my, doing pro wrestling and stuff. It's kind of.
It's theater. It's its own kind of theater.
Yeah, I could see almost being like kind of. I think I would enjoy it. Mm-hmm, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But it would definitely be a challenge.
Yeah.
Because it's like weird to like it's weird like even with pro wrestling, I was able to just like. It's just a part of you, the character.
It's an extension of.
It's still you, but it's like you, a part of you turned up. Like the volume turned up. So like, maybe like, especially when you're like a bad guy.
Yeah.
You can like actually take, qualities you have, but like take the, I don't know, being a bad guy was really fun.
I was going to say, it's got to be a good time.
Yeah, because it's kind of like you just think of like the stuff that you find disgusting in human beings yourself, but then you do that stuff. Like you try to be despicable, you try to cheat, you try to be like, think of like people in life that have gotten away with things, and like, so you play that, or like, you're like, one thing is like you can be like, overly egotistical.
Oh yeah.
Like think of that, like the stereotype of like a jerk, like from a movie where it's like the jock who's like an asshole. Like you just do that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like it can be pretty fun.
Yeah.
You know, like,
no, absolutely.
Yeah. So I always like being a bad, and I suppose acting is like that too. If you're gonna play a bad guy, like
I always liked playing a bad guy. Just that again, you get to explore things that you're being given permission.
Yeah, it's like being given permission to be a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But scripted.
Yeah.
A scripted dick.
Right.
But you have improv. You have stuff that doesn't follow a strict script. But
now, do you ever write stuff like scripts or anything?
I do. I teach a fair amount of playwriting.
Right. Any interesting plays you've written?
When I was living in New York, I used to write a lot more plays. I belonged to a couple groups. One of them, I first started with them as an actor and then brought in some of my plays. I had some readings done with the Abingdon Stage Company, which is an off-Broadway company in New York that's fantastic.
Hell yeah.
Here, I've worked with a couple different playwright groups. I've had some stuff performed. I've had some stuff of mine performed at festivals before.
That's awesome.
It's one of those things that, like, when I have the time, I love to be able to do. Yeah. I have to... one of the things when you work in the arts, like, I don't have one job. Mm-hmm. I contract with a lot of places. You are spread
out over so many different passions right now. Which is like, that's why I thank you for being here. Because I know, because I asked you a while and you're like, yeah, maybe the end, like, dope. Because I just had to have you back. Like, and we'll definitely have to have you again because it's always it's fun.
I enjoy coming on, so I'm glad that, but it's.
Well, I listened back to our first episode. I'm like, this is fun. Like, yeah, you're just a fun hang. So.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
But no, it's actually something I'm trying to be a little better about too. Is just like I work a lot. I like to work. I like working. Mm-hmm. So you understand? Like there is this.
I feel better when I am like let's see, like so yesterday. My day was like, what was yesterday? Wednesday. Yeah, so it was like, personal training client right away in the morning at 8, and then it was like go do my own lift at the gym, and then it was, I think I went and like tanned or something, and then I went back to the gym, did cardio, and then I had to like I sold something on Facebook, like I don't know, it was one of those days where like, and then I had a podcast at 5 and then immediately after the podcast I had another personal training client at 8:30, and then I came back home and I edited the podcast, I put the clips out, and then I went to bed. But it was like, to me, that's a perfect day.
Yeah
and like you're making money, but so
but you're liking what you're doing, everything you're
very
doing
much so very passionate about it. So like that's. So you're doing, you're doing your podcast with Gabi. So you have Ghoulish Tendencies Podcast. You're teaching theater. You're performing too.
I do perform too sometimes. Yeah.
You're doing all these
making horror films.
Like you said, writing when you can, but then also doing these not the Comic-Cons, but these
I panel, I get asked to guest speak at places.
And so it's like, this is like your living, really. And it's not just one thing.
No.
Yeah.
It's sometimes when somebody asks what I do, depending on...
Well, and the tours. You do the whole...
I do the ghost tours. I do the history element. I do all the true crime stuff for Spooked. Yeah. I've been doing a little bit more frequently, too. Like coming in and doing true crime presentations for events or for like a bar or for...
Well, that's the other thing is you have, the podcast is also all these true crime things. So it's like real. So it's not just like, you can say what you want about ghost stories or not, but you're also researching real events that happen that are murder mysteries or... So like you're pretty knowledgeable about all that stuff too. Like you were the one that told me, and I didn't realize too, like, and I saw you were reading a book about it, that there actually is like female serial killers.
Oh, so many female serial killers.
I didn't really know that was the thing.
One of my proposed panels for Crypticon this year is, I don't know if it's gonna happen or not yet. I'm still waiting for confirmation on which panels I'm doing exactly, but was one about specifically female serial killers, because there's so many really fascinating ones that get people don't talk about, and yet Belle Gunness, who I will always talk about, because she's fascinating, and brutal.
Someone needs to do a movie on a female serial killer.
It's.
I mean, you have
Monster, but there's been some. I mean, even like, Linda Hazard is a local one. Mm-hmm. Linda Hazard in Olalla, Washington.
Yeah.
She ran a wellness clinic.
Okay.
Where what she basically like touted as her whole, I am a medical professional and this is what I believe, because she was grandfathered in to a clause that allowed longtime practitioners of certain like natural medicines could be called doctor.
Okay.
Which was meant for like, mostly indigenous kinds of things, but she skirted into it. Fasting could cure anything. That's what she said.
Right.
Fasting could cure anything.
Yeah.
And so people
I'm a proponent of fasting, but there's some things it's definitely not going to cure.
Fasting for months?
No, that's terrible.
It's terrible. Yeah. She would have people come to her. It got called Starvation Heights. There's a book called Starvation Heights that was written about the whole thing. But, and would be, I mean, they might
she would prescribe fasting for months to people?
Months. For months at a time, where they might have a cup of broth, or not even broth. That's actually being generous, like tomato water. And maybe a piece of fruit. Maybe.
Yeah.
And
this is how she believes she could cure any disease.
Any disease. And all these people died. And it wasn't until there was a pair of sisters that went to her. And one of the sisters ended up dying. The other one, I believe, was about 68 pounds at the time that she was finally taken away.
Yeah.
And she was convicted, served like 2 years in prison, got back out, continued to practice. And it wasn't until her 70s, when she got sick herself, she fasted, she died.
So basically, like, she was getting off on killing people.
Oh, yeah. There's all these stories that used to get told about, like, she had almost a cult-like control over the people there.
It was a power thing, too.
It was a power thing. And there was stories from people who survived who would say, she could get people to jump off cliffs.
Well, imagine that's what you believe, too. Like, you're trying to find some way to cure this thing, and you believe this thing, and you believe this person, you put your trust in them, and then you just die.
I'll do it. Well, it's I mean, you see it
probably desperate.
With Charles Manson. We've seen it with Jim Jones. I mean, that is the allure, too. And if one of the first things, if you start to partake in a cult, one of the things they do is actually lower your nutrition, because you're a lot more open to.
I've heard that was like that. What was it? The one that started with an N, like the. That is what they were doing. The woman that got away, I can't remember. It was this cult. It was a newer one.
Yeah.
And that's what he would do. He would like limit their calories, which actually caused them to be more susceptible to like
much more open to things. Yeah.
Because you're starving, so you're like, oh, okay.
That sounds right.
Because like I know, like I'm have a bodybuilding show coming up, so I'm on super low calories right now. You definitely get into a different state of mind,
a headspace. That's
when you're on limited calories, you're just like, what?
Yep.
You're just like, oh, okay. What? Something happened? Anyway, he's like, yeah. You know what I mean? So, like, I could see where... Well, and also calorie restriction's a power move.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I'm controlling what you intake into your body. God, I wish I could remember that. My friend would know it immediately. So, my friend Pepper, who is a therapist, she's fascinated by cults, serial killers. You'd get along so good with her.
Have to bring her on.
You guys would literally have like the longest like psychological conversation, I guarantee it. Yeah. But it's those cults are always a power thing. Yeah. It's weird.
It's well, because we had done Gabi she took the lead on this, and this one I do more true crime stuff usually. Yeah. It's because that's one of but she took the lead on doing the 2-part Jim Jones episode. And she did a fantastic job.
Jim Jones was?
He was a cult leader.
And what was the cult called? Is it
so when you talk about drinking the Kool-Aid, although that wasn't.
Is he the Kool-Aid
correct.
guy?
He was one of them, but
Because there was the one where like we're gonna go to see the aliens or whatever.
No, that was is that Heaven's Gate?
Heaven's Gate.
That was
maybe?
Heaven's Gate. This was like the People's Temple. This was they were in South America and they all committed mass suicide as well because that's what you do.
So terrifying.
But she did a 2-part episode on it, and it did a little bit of a number on her. But one of the thing and she listened to some of the tapes, but there is a 45-minute uncut tape of the whole thing, and I've listened to that entire thing.
Pretty scary, huh?
It's not a thing I would recommend somebody just listening to for kicks.
No, it'd be terrifying.
I like to have all of my knowledge. I like to know what
You wanted to hear it.
It's
even though it was really hard to listen to.
It's like a compulsion of even though this is probably going to really, really upset me, I feel a need to listen to this whole thing so I can understand.
Well, do you remember that's that Grizzly Man documentary?
Yes.
Where he was hanging out with grizzly bears and it was like him and his girlfriend and there was he finally got eaten after being delusional for so many years.
In his tent.
And I remember the director, they didn't put the tape out on the video because it was too disturbing, but they did show, they showed on the documentary, I think the director listening to the tape.
Yeah.
And that's what that reminds me of.
Yeah. It's something that I find this even sometimes with horror films where there's stuff that I know will probably potentially upset me, but I feel the need to bear witness to it because it's a notable movie.
Yeah.
Which is how I ended up watching Serbian film, which nobody should ever watch ever.
Yeah.
But with that, the tapes are very upsetting to listen to.
Yeah, I imagine.
And you can find most documentaries or things that news stories that talk about it will play little clips, but it's a solid 45 minutes of just.
Oof.
And it's rough.
It's gotta be rough, yeah.
But
so what's always I feel like the men cult leaders, they always end up fucking everybody.
Yeah.
What's up with that? There was even one, I can't remember which cult, but it was a cult leader, but he was fucking all the men, and they're all straight men. It's how do you get that much power over people where it's yeah, listen, bro, I don't want to do this.
It's not my thing,
God's
but
telling me I really don't want to, but I'm gonna have to fuck you. Sorry.
And
then you got to go to your wife and be like,
I did this.
Yeah, he's got to fuck me. I'm sorry. It's because of God. God told me.
And I say that I was raised Catholic.
Yeah.
And the Catholic Church has.
So you can kind of see how it.
It's
if
not
you
even.
If you believe something, you believe it.
The predators preying on children, the children aren't the one, but it's there's parents who knew what was going on.
But they didn't want to, kind of what we're talking earlier, they didn't want to disturb the status quo or that is really weird, especially as a parent. If you know that's going on, but you just don't. Well, that always happens in those abuse things too, where maybe the dad is abusing the daughter, but the mom kind of knows, but she doesn't fucking say anything or.
There's been a couple cases where a parent has been arrested for killing the person that abused their child. And anytime I see that, I'm not endorsing murder, but I'm also just
No.
good for them.
That happened to that UFC fighter. Did you hear that? So it turned out that there was this guy that was molesting over 100 kids or something, boys, I'm pretty sure. And he found out and he went after him with a gun and shot at him a bunch and he went to jail, but it's fuck that, get that guy out of jail.
I feel it.
I think he should be free. Fuck that.
Well, there was when
he might be out of jail now because I think public favor was definitely on his side. This guy abused more than 100 kids. Come on.
I look at Pedro Lopez is one. He was he might still be alive. We don't know. A serial killer in Colombia, Peru, and he killed anywhere from 1 to 300 little girls. And at one point,
that's terrifying.
It's one, and there was he killed a lot of marginalized, he killed a lot of indigenous children, and one of the tribes had figured it out, caught him and buried him in the sand so he would die. And you can't be angry at that. You're yeah.
No, I wouldn't be angry at that at all.
And
Fuck
it was a white missionary
who
got him out. And she like promised, oh no, I'll bring him to the police or whatever, and then she didn't. And he went and killed another 50 children. Like I'm not pro death penalty. I'm not pro a lot of things, but you read a case like that and you're just like, you know what? Well, bury him in the sand. Let the ants eat him.
Yeah, you can't blame those people for doing that at all.
Like,
are you kidding me? Like, that's just like,
because this isn't a case of part of the reason. Well, like, I'm not pro death penalty because it's so often
wrong.
Yeah,
that's why. Like, it's not the fact that like if you know for a fact the person did it, fuck them. You're like, kill them. But that's the problem with the death penalty I have is like so many people get wrongfully convicted.
Yes,
that's
like,
why
an
it
obscene
becomes
amount of people. Yeah,
and it's kind of like we were talking before, like if you have an event happen and different people's perspective on it, it's so easy to talk people into thinking it's even easy to talk people into thinking they did something they didn't do.
Oh, yeah.
If you're susceptible to like, and the cops are like, listen, you did this. And it's like, did I do that?
And you have someone in questioning for days.
And finally you're just like, I must have done it. They told me I did it.
They haven't been sleeping. They're confused.
You're deprived of sleep, food, all that. And like, you're like, I must have done it. They're telling me I did it.
But it's our police system, our justice system is so messed up. It's so corrupt and racist. Incredibly racist that I feel like if you're looking for justice to be happening there, it's probably not.
Right. So that's why we have to be super careful with death penalty, right?
And Washington State has outlawed the death penalty. We are one of a number of states now who no longer allow the death penalty.
God, yeah. Think about how many people are in jail for drugs that shouldn't be.
Oh, yeah. Or have been in jail. Like, what's really sad to me, the case I covered for Pacific Northwest True Crime Fest was a case of a man who had sexually assaulted a woman.
Yeah.
He went to jail. He was supposed to be in jail for much, much longer than he was. He was released super early. He went back, murdered her child, murdered her neighbor.
So all could have been prevented if they would have left him in jail.
Or if they'd even communicated to the victims that he had been released.
They didn't even know.
No, they had no way of knowing.
Fuck.
And I mean, again, a child. He murdered a small child, as well as the mother and the neighbor. And didn't even try to hide it after that, too. Like, they caught him pretty quickly.
It's always the eeriest thing when people fuck with kids. Like, kill kids.
Yeah.
I think that's why those Freddy Krueger movies were so terrifying. Because he was, like, messing with kids. Young people. Or he was a murderer of kids, right? Like, that's the whole story, right?
Yeah, well, and the illusion is that, in the first one, I believe the illusion is that he's a pedophile.
Yeah, in the remake, he definitely was.
One of the things I actually got kind of mad in the remake is that I actually thought it would have been a much more compelling story if the community got together and murdered him, but he had been falsely accused, and that's why he was getting revenge.
So pissed off, like, I didn't fucking do it.
Yeah.
You all killed me.
And originally they were kind of going in that direction, and then they went like, nope, we can't make somebody...
We want you to hate him.
We want you to hate him, and it's so much more interesting. Well, and it's coming back to the Candyman story, the whole thing with him, the original character, is that he had an affair with a white woman.
Yeah.
And was, a mob... tracked him down and beat him and smeared him in honey and cut his hand off and put a hook there. So that's where the
bee thing comes
from.
And
the bees, he died from that, and his spirit...
So he was killed because of racism and turned into a villain.
A vengeful spirit.
Yeah.
And I find that a really... there's always something to me more interesting about someone who is not completely pure evil.
Right, because like the best movies, the best villains in any kind of... movie, any kind of book, any kind of story are ones who believe that they're right. They believe they're actually the one who is like virtue. You know what I'm saying? The best villains feel justified in what they're doing, and they think they're the good guy.
Well, and fully fleshed out characters too. Like they have a history. They're not this two-dimensional like I am evil. Like Jason Voorhees, love him to death, but that is not a three-dimensional character.
No.
But
if you watch like Dances with Wolves. Like, I'm on Kevin Costner's side, and I want him to go live with the natives and all that. Like, but the U.S. government, they think they're the good guys, and these are savages. Like, or just like I suppose like that's the same plot as Avatar.
Manifest destiny, We're gonna
So like the best villains think that they're in the right, which is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's how you
write a good villain.
Republicans.
Well, right. It's like, yeah, I mean, no offense to my Republican listeners, but you're right. Whatever ideology, like that you see the opposite one. I always tell people that with politics too. As much as you believe in what you believe in, the other side believes in that what they believe in is the correct, right thing just as passionately. That's why it's dangerous, right? Like,
when you become incapable of listening to somebody else, that to me is what's dangerous. Like, if I cannot listen, if I'm not open to hearing what someone else has to say, to potentially changing what I have to believe in, if I am presented again with evidence, it's like ghost hunting. Give me some evidence.
You need evidence. The other thing is, like, we were talking about that, like, actually the best thing to do if you are against something is, like, when they do it in debate, is like you should like learn, like it's like a straw man versus like steel man, right?
Yeah.
So like steel man is like, if I'm going to be, and some of the political people I listen to are really, like if you listen to like Kyle Kulinski, I really like, and he's very liberal, right? But he can literally look at anything on the right and he can understand exactly where they're coming from. And that's what makes him so good. And that's actually like the only way you're ever going to get anybody to like see things your way is if you can like, if you're just like, no, fuck you, you're a piece of shit. Like they're never going to like see your point of view. So it is weird. Like you actually, and this doesn't even have to be just politics. It's
in general,
any good debate. You got to know the opposition, like
and understand it.
Where they're coming from in order to fight them.
And understanding is not agreement, but I at least need to be able to see and know and feel.
Why they know their logic and why they believe what they believe.
Because then you can dismantle.
You don't have to agree with it.
No.
Right. It's actually really. It reminds me. We were talking about like the Hannibal Lecter shit.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Red Dragon and what is it, Will?
Oh, Will Graham.
Like he is a great guy. He's not a bad guy, but he can somehow understand how serial killers think, what they feel. Like that's what made his character so compelling. He can like put himself in the mind
empathy
of a
of going
killer.
in. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean he's a serial killer. It doesn't mean he even thinks they're right, but he can like. So like that's what made him such a good cop. You know what I'm saying? So like that was an interesting plot point, like.
Oh yeah. Did you watch the new Hannibal series they did?
Loved it.
That I loved that so much.
The Will Graham Hannibal relationship in that in that show was fucking great.
Yeah.
I loved all of it. I loved the casting. I loved that they even
Mads
had.
Mikkelsen.
I love that they even had what's his name in the wheelchair.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and he even spoke like the one from the movie, like Cordell. Fuck, that dude was so good. Just everything about that series. I could watch that again.
Oh, I absolutely. Yeah. That was. I was very upset that it only lasted 3 seasons.
That is too bad because the casting was so good.
And Gillian Anderson again as Hannibal Lecter's psychiatrist too. She was so good in that.
So good.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole cast, everything about it. Loved it. Loved that show. I always said the weird thing was like how well they filmed the food scenes. It like made you kind of like want to eat it, but then you're like,
it was a show about food, yeah.
Yeah, like because they filmed it like I think I said that maybe on the last one. I can't remember if we talked about it, but they filmed it like you're watching like a Food Network show that's like really well done. And you're like, damn. Like other than the fact that I know that's supposed to be a body part, this looks really good. This
looks tasty.
Which actually made it even more eerie when you'd like watch them have people over to eat and they're all enjoying this food and it's like, oh.
But also, it looks really good.
It kind of looks good. Yeah, if you didn't know what it was, you'd probably enjoy it.
And people did.
So yeah, I mean, in the book, that's what he was doing, right? Like,
yeah.
And he'd have this dinner party. That's why I was saying that earlier. Like, how the fuck did that Thomas Harris come up with those stories? Like I said, that's how we got talking about Ed Gein.
Yeah, because he was inspired.
So he took a little, but like, even still, just like the world building that he did for those Hannibal books. Yeah. Like we'll talk about world building, like you said, Marvel's good at it, or like. The J.R.R. Tolkien, excellent world building. That those Thomas Harris books don't get enough credit for the world building that he did. Like those are some good.
He wrote There's 4 novels, I think,
There's 4 of them. There's Hannibal. Mm-hmm. So it was Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, and then he did a prequel called Hannibal Rising.
Hannibal Rising, yeah.
Which that's the only one I've never read, but
yeah,
I don't know why. I should. I just need to read more, you know.
But it's no, he fleshes out, and each one, like, because you've got Clarice Starling is fascinating.
Yes.
Will Graham is fascinating. Hannibal Lecter, like, he has all these even like Freddie Lowndes, the reporter, is like such a great character.
So good.
Like, these just fantastic characters who.
Well, even like the Tooth Fairy.
Oh.
The weird, like, his grandma's like, I'll cut it off, you know. Like, it's like so, like, you kind of see how this, like.
You feel for him.
Well, even the way he, like, falls in love with that girl and he wants to stop killing, so he eats the painting, like, you know, and she's blind, so she can't tell that, like, she has no awareness that he's this, and she loves him too. It's a weird, like, how the fuck did he think of that shit?
But it's funny because you look at, like, Gary Ridgway is such an interesting example of Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer.
Oh yeah, I've heard a lot about him because of this area, right?
Well, he's one of our locals. But he, you know, most prolific killer in United States history.
Whoa.
He has killed, confirmed kills. He was convicted of 49 murders. Now, are there other serial killers who may have killed more? Certainly. But
we don't know of it, though. Yeah.
We haven't confirmed it. And even him, we know he's killed more. He killed primarily in the 80s.
Yep.
He met his 3rd wife.
So he was married while he was killing.
There's a whole story. Oh, God. So there's this whole
story. And
story.
his wife didn't know.
Well, so his first wife may have been the reason he started killing, but we're not going to go too much into that.
Okay, really?
He had a son. He has a son. His son is still alive. He's still alive.
That's creepy. Imagine being the son of a fucking serial killer.
His son was in the car at least once when he picked up a sex worker.
Is that what he would do a lot? Pick up sex workers?
That was most of his victims. Sex workers, runaways, hitchhikers. He picked up a sex worker, and there's an interview of him talking about this. His son was in the car. His son would have been, I don't know, like 6 or 7, I think. He drives to a place. He takes her out. He murders her. His son's in the car still.
Waiting.
And he says in the interview, he's like, I'm pretty sure he didn't hear anything. And when he gets back in the car and he says, oh, she had to go. But when he met his 3rd wife, he virtually stopped killing. By all accounts, he genuinely loved her. Like, he killed a couple dozen women in a very short time period.
So it was like a compulsion that, like you would quit smoking for someone.
And
like, I love my new wife, so you know what? I'm gonna quit drinking. My new wife is so amazing. Yeah. So it's like
and he still killed some women while he was married to her, but it was significantly less.
So it was almost like a thing where, like, he was trying to quit, but every once in a while the urge would come.
You gotta cheat every so often. It's, you know, I can't help it. Sneak a cigarette yeah. But it's fascinating that if they hadn't gotten married, I do wonder if he would have been caught quicker, just because the level of which he was burning through victims, he wouldn't have been able to sustain. Yeah, it would have been too hard. But because he cooled off so much.
That is so weird.
The case cooled down so much.
Yeah. So, like, is his wife still alive too?
She is. It's, oh God.
So it's like weird. Your wife, your son.
I mean, they're divorced because.
No, I know. But I wonder what that's like, living, interacting, and in fact, loving this person. Like, if you're his son or wife, and spending all these years, and then you find, like, it's so weird that you can, like, be that close with someone and not know. It creeps you out because then you're like, what do I not know about my friends? Or what do I not know? You know, like...
She's given one interview that I've seen, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
Like, she had no idea?
No idea. And it just destroyed her.
Well, yeah, you think about that. That would destroy, because, like, your whole life's a lie.
And the person who you... When she talks about, you know, they used to joke about it because he was a suspect at this point. Like... He was first questioned in 1983. He wasn't arrested till 2001.
So they'd already had some.
He'd been
they
questioned
had some
multiple
idea
times.
That he could be.
Oh yeah, his coworkers openly called him to his face Green River Gary. Like, it was a. Holy but they didn't have the evidence.
So people kind of knew.
Yeah. And it was finally the DNA evidence. In 2001, they were finally able to trace some DNA evidence from early crime scenes. But, like, she talks about how they would joke about it. Some of the posters look like you, but you must just look like this guy. Isn't that an unfortunate
like the wife
coincidence?
Would joke about that?
Yeah, because he would, because he'd get brought in for questioning, and you can't hide that. But he would play it off. Oh, it's too bad. He must just look like me. And to be fair, you look at Gary Ridgway, he does have this very kind of generic look.
Yeah.
Where you're like, yeah, I could easily see somebody.
He could just look like somebody else. Or
white dude with a mustache, sure.
Yeah.
White middle-aged dude with a mustache. He could
just
be Ted Lasso. There's a lot of those. Yeah. But it's you see these cases where, I mean, even Ted Bundy's girlfriend.
She had no idea.
She did.
Oh, she did.
She's
people kind of
one of the
always
people
know.
who called in a tip, but she stayed with him. Like, sometimes there's the no idea, but sometimes, again, it's that gut. Her gut was telling her something, and she wasn't listening to it. She ignored it.
It's like trying to use logic versus what, like you said, humans are really good at these gut instincts.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell, like, even working in a bar, if some guy walks in and you get a feeling like this guy could be trouble. Mm-hmm. You can always tell, like, this guy could be dangerous. Mm-hmm. And you're always right, like, because you can just tell that there's something off internally where, like, especially, like, if there are dangerous people that come in a bar, like, it seems like you can kind of tell, like, okay, this guy's, something's not right with him where he's, like, not happy with himself.
Yeah.
And so he's going to be explosive or could be dangerous to people. And you can feel it right away. Mm-hmm. Where if somebody, it's like a vibrational energy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can feel a good vibe versus a bad vibe. But we don't, we don't put enough stock in that, but we should.
We should, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and it's trusting your instincts. It's trusting that even if you're wrong, there's still something is triggering that in you.
Right.
So why?
Well, it's kind of like I said, like, if you cross the street because you're scared of somebody walking and you're wrong, at least you're alive.
You're alive.
Like...
There's no
so
stakes there.
Maybe you hurt their feelings, but who cares?
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Like... Yeah, like, if I was, like, walking down the street and I'm a big dude and some girl crossed the other side, I wouldn't be, like, hurt by it. I'd be like, oh, she's alone and I'm big. It's like... I wouldn't take any offense to that. It's like, you got to be safe. So
I've had guys who were walking behind me before, and I'm doing that thing where I'm just like, and I've seen them cross the street so that they're not that guy following the girl.
Right, so they're actually, like, giving you the grace of, like, oh my God, I don't want to make her uncomfortable.
I don't want to be that guy. I'm so sorry. I really am just walking. Yeah.
Right, that's probably, you probably actually like that. That's probably nice.
There's always that moment of being like, I appreciate that you understand why I was kind of anxious with somebody right behind me where I was,
You're like, okay, so this guy is probably a good guy.
Yeah. And then in general, again, most of the time when you're walking alone at night and you see a dude or see a big person, they're probably fine. Probably fine,
but it's night and you're alone.
Yeah.
Being a little cautious seems reasonable, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah. So
it's the stuff. It's even just those things like when you leave. Even now I get into an Uber and my friend says, "Text me when you get home."
Oh yeah.
And it's just...
I always do that with my friends around here.
Yeah.
There's just something you gotta be. Yeah, it's like always like text me when you get home. Make sure you're safe. You know, and, because you never know.
You never know.
I mean, yeah. Even in a small town, it's
yeah. Because there's the small towns are. That's the thing. You get lulled into those false sense of security.
Right, where everybody's like leaving their door open, and then there's serial killers from small towns too.
Or just random crimes that happen. A robbery gone wrong.
Yeah, that stuff happens too. Like where somebody gets killed. Like
like there's the most murders are not serial killers. Most murders are like crimes of passion is a big one, or interrupting another crime.
Right.
And it's an accidental. Nobody set out for this to become a murder, but it escalated, and now it is.
You catch somebody robbing something and they shoot you.
Or you're the one that pulls out the gun and a scuffle happens. Or there's a lot of different. It's
and then
why
you end up dead.
Yeah. It's why they talk a lot about, the flip side of if you have a gun in your home, how easily it can be turned against you.
Right. So you have the gun for safety, but
but now they have it.
It could, yeah.
And it's and that's not to say one way is like the right or wrong way of thinking.
Right.
It's just, it's a reality. If when you introduce a weapon into a scenario, the weapon can be then used against you if you lose control of it.
Oh yeah. If you're going to stab someone with a knife, they could turn the knife on you.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
Yeah, it's like, God. It's kind of creepy talking about this stuff sometimes. This is like what you do.
This is what I do.
Yeah, you research this stuff.
I do.
Do you ever do anything to like kind of decompress from all that? Like, do you ever do anything to kind of like, does it ever? I mean, I know it's a passion and you love researching it, but does it ever kind of? And I'm sure this has happened to you where there's been a case that gets too eerie and you start feeling it and you're like get really disgusted probably, or like you said, but you still want to know. Like you listen to that tape, like. Is there something you do to get away from it sometimes and just like get away and kind of decompress from it to take breaks or like?
Yeah, as I've had a few that have really upset me. Yeah. Robert Yates was one I found really upsetting. He's
and who's Robert Yates?
He's another local serial killer. He was
from this area.
From this area, Spokane mostly, but he was he killed a number of sex workers.
That's always eerie to me because there's something really creepy about that because it's like you have this person that for whatever reason, like I'm not going to put down sex workers, but they've come to a point in their life where they need to do this thing. And, most of the time it's like you probably could make more money than any other thing faster than you could, but you have to do this thing that's, sexual. But those people get preyed upon more than anybody.
They're vulnerable
because you're putting yourself in a vulnerable situation.
And a lot of killers have specifically target
sex workers
because they're vulnerable people. And that's why serial killers target sex workers because they're vulnerable people. And I don't know why the Robert Yates one. It wasn't that. It's weird to say like he wasn't any worse than some of the others I'd researched, but I remember calling my mom when I was in the middle of researching him, and I was just upset. I was like, I don't know, this one's getting to me.
It actually got to you.
I think part of it was he was horribly abusive to his children. And I had found a documentary that interviewed a bunch of his kids. So listening to them talk about how he was the supposed family man, but like what he was doing to them. It's blowing my mind that
these serial killers all had kids and shit, too.
A lot of them did.
It's like such a double life.
And a lot of them, that's how they hid.
It's almost protection in the family man life.
It's wearing a person suit. It's, I mean.
So the real person is a monster, but the family man, the facade, the mask of it hides you from the public seeing who you really are.
Because also you think about it, we joke about, like the dude in his mother's basement, the loner. If I'm a man who's married and I have children and I go to church
and
I
is a big one to hide,
have a job and I carry out and I'm a community member.
Well, look at that John Wayne Gacy.
I was just about to say John Wayne Gacy. Yeah,
helpful things in the community. He was well liked in the community,
and yet long before he was murdering young men, he was sexually assaulting them and went and spent time in jail for sexually assaulting a young man.
Yeah.
And yet got released.
Yeah.
And got and I mean it's that's I think
there's
that's
always all these signs and we just don't we need to be better at that.
It's rarely, and to be fair, a lot of these were cases where, this is pre-internet, obviously. Yeah. So we don't have the same means of tracing certain
it's also
cases.
Sometimes the law, it's like there's only so much I can do. If I don't have the evidence, there's nothing I can do. And it's even if you're a good cop and you know something's up.
Oh, sure. Well, it's again, Gary Ridgway.
Yeah.
83 is when he was first questioned, and 2001 is when he was arrested. That's a huge chunk of time.
Could have been stopped so much sooner.
But if you don't have the evidence,
hard evidence,
you can't do anything.
Literally nothing you can do.
But I like horror is a weird escape for me, but sometimes if I'm like, I don't want to see more blood, I watch a lot of like Parks and Recreation, The Office, and kind of silly,
those
familiar
are fun.
shows
Good
too.
shows. Yeah,
I've watched them a million times. I know what to expect.
But you can decompress a little bit.
I can decompress. I read like trashy romance novels. I love my trashy romance novels.
Hell yeah.
I love Our Flag Means Death. That is a favorite show of mine.
Okay.
And so I'll go back and watch that because it always makes me happy. Gay pirates, I love it.
Yeah.
But
sounds awesome.
It's I tried, or I'll watch something like bad romantic comedies or movies that I know the outcome to. I know how it's going to turn out. I'll rewatch Back to the Future or something.
Those are like
fun.
low anxiety. They say that actually helps with anxiety watching stuff you've already seen.
Yeah.
Because it's like a break from because it's fun to be anxious, but like if you need a break from it, watch something you've already seen because you already know the outcome. Yeah.
And it's just that like I'll watch Marvel movies. I love the Marvel movies.
So good.
And they're fun. And they're
light.
They're light. Most of them.
They're light.
I can't do like Endgame. If I need to relax, I'll watch Endgame to a point.
That one's not light.
That was
heavy. He was another villain who believed he was doing the right thing.
And it's hard to combat that.
Yeah, I mean he was kind of. He had an idea.
He had and believed very strongly in it.
Yeah.
Sometimes stuff can. It's weird. I can't always predict because I'll look at some of the like most brutal, disgusting crime scene photos.
I know you guys were just talking about one where like they found body parts in the septic tank.
That was the weird bonkers update. Where I thought I was
that was a second part of a previous one you did, yeah.
So the case we're talking about is the Lady of the Dunes, which I'd covered last year at some point.
Right.
Which was at the time the oldest, I think it's the coldest case in Massachusetts history. She was murdered in 1974. And on October 31st of 2022, she was identified.
That took a long time.
It took almost 50 years.
Yep.
Ruth Marie Terry is the woman's name. And when that first came out, I even remember messaging Gabi being like, "Oh, I'll have to like record a quick update."
Yeah.
But then I started digging, and the case
was like more and more.
Oh my God, the case got insane because the man who most likely murdered her, and he passed in the early 2000s, so it's kind of one of those where it's like...
And he was a creepy narcissistic dude.
Narcissistic dude who almost most assuredly killed another previous wife and her stepdaughter.
Yep.
And lived in Seattle.
Yeah.
When it was a Seattle case. The wife and stepdaughter disappeared. Body parts were found in the Columbia River. Body parts and pieces of a body were found in a septic tank.
That was the part where I was like, whoa.
That whole case blew my mind.
Yeah.
And this was I think our most recent episode was The Haunting. It was the episode before that.
Yeah.
It's again, and sometimes you hit a case where you're just like, I don't. Oh.
Shocking.
And that one, the whole time, I should have kept like a live stream of my face while I was researching it because there was a lot of extreme facial expressions.
Yeah.
But it's also, I mean, the technology, the genealogical technology they're using to identify killers and victims from these really old cases is remarkable.
It's really cool.
It's so
and like you said,
cool.
it finally gives certain people closure that have never gotten closure, which has got to be one of the toughest things.
Oh, it's such a...
Just knowing, you already know. Part of you probably already knows.
Yeah,
yes,
you have to.
Dead,
you
they're
have
dead.
to.
It would be a really rare case where it comes up that they're not, but but the finality of knowing probably like releases something, right?
Yeah.
Like,
because you finally have some answers. You know what happened, and in some cases, then you can also either bring a body home or give a proper grave marker, a proper burial,
which means a lot to some, like
yeah.
And I don't know, man. That's some eerie stuff, but well, I think we're at 3 hours. So
oh my God.
just like that. So I'm glad you keep doing what you're doing because it's. I have been listening to the podcast and it's fun. And also just think you guys do such a good job of researching, which is like you said in your kind of podcast, very important.
Yeah.
And then two, you guys have a fun relationship,
Yeah.
so it makes it fun to listen to at the same time. And like your banter with each other and everything. So I'm a fan. So people go out and listen to Ghoulish Tendencies Podcast. Kim is the co-host with her other co-host, Gabi. What's her last name?
Fiore.
Gabi Fiore. And they do an excellent job researching the paranormal, but also these like cold case murder mysteries and murder mysteries,
Occasional
haunted
curse
houses,
or cryptid.
cryptids, cryptozoology, which is amazing. And so Kim, thank you for being here, because I know you're so busy. I really appreciate it, and we got to do this again sometime.
Yes, I always enjoy it.
And thanks everybody out there for listening, and we will see you next time.